So at this time, I would like to call the Carver School Committee meeting to order at 7:03. Just a reminder to everybody that this meeting is being held virtually in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Just in terms of how we'll proceed and process, I'm going to mute all participants at this time. If you're not already muted, members of the school committee, if you can raise your hand, or certainly you can feel free to unmute yourself as well as we go through discussions. So if you give me a second to share my screen, I will share the screen and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, so at this time, if everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'd like to begin this evening with a couple of recognitions. First, we want to, we actually invited former school committee member Andrew Salavota to attend this evening's meeting. He originally said he was going to be able to attend, but then yesterday he told me that he ended up having a conflict. He wouldn't be able to attend this evening. We decided we still want to do a recognition for his years of service on the school committee. Andrew has been, a really great member of the committee for the last 6 years. He began his service in 2014. He is a former graduate of Carver High School and Carver Public Schools in 1999. He's had 2 kids in the district, Landon, who's in the 4th grade, and Tyler, who's in the 2nd grade. He's served as the vice chair of the committee since 2017. And in his time on the committee, he really devoted himself to doing everything he can to improve the education for all kids throughout the community. He dedicated himself to the committee and the work of the committee, and really was an outstanding member during the times in which he chose to serve. He had a passion for both the new elementary school project, which he spent a lot of time on, and then also promoting the track and field project. And he played a huge role in both of those things coming to fruition. So we'd just like to take a minute to thank Andrew Salavota for his years of service on the committee and for his outstanding work. The committee did give him a couple of gifts today, which actually delivered to his home. We did a edible arrangement, and then we also did a picture from the local artist Gail Nowen. Many of you have seen Gail Nowen's prints before. I just pulled up on this, it's slowly pulling up on the screen. Swear if I could get a little bigger. It's a little small, but that is the print that was delivered to him as well. So the committee recognized Andy through a print from Gail Nowen, and then also, through a gift basket. So again, I'd just like to thank Andrew for all his time and his service to the Carver School Committee. I don't know if any of the other members would like to weigh in, so I would give them the opportunity to do that. You can feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I know I've only been on for a year or so, but I definitely learned a lot just by talking to Andrew. So thank you, Andrew, very much when you do see this.
Yes, Scott, I'd like to say a few words. Andrew's been an invaluable member of the school committee. He's taken some, had to take some make some hard decisions, and got faced with a lot of difficult issues. Things that we didn't want to see happen, but there are also some very bright spots like the new elementary school and the rehab of the gym and the middle high school and the new track and field complex, as you mentioned. He'll be very much missed on the committee, and I hope he does come and attend one of our future meetings. It's too bad he couldn't be here tonight, but it was a pleasure serving with him.
Thank you, Eddie.
Okay, I think I successfully unmuted myself. I also just want to thank Andrew for his years of service and his dedication and his passion It was a pleasure to serve on the committee with him, and I wish him well, and I hope too that he can attend a meeting in the future so we can all thank him in person. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We do have another recognition this evening, and similar to our last meeting, I did not invite all the students and their parents for the recognition, but what we'll be doing is everybody will receive a letter tomorrow. The letter will get mailed out tomorrow saying that they were mentioned at this evening's meeting and recognized for some of their accomplishments. So we want to recognize a group of students who participated in the MIT, or really were winners in the MIT Curiosity Challenge. The MIT Curiosity Challenge is an annual contest where students are asked to write an essay or a poem, create a drawing, take a picture about something they're curious about, and tell the committee what prompted them to explore the world and why they were interested in this idea. Some of the examples they give are what was before the Big Bang, how you were able to see things in your head. Ultimately, MIT sponsors this competition because they believe that curiosity in science is driven by curiosity. And so they want to have our kids be curious and show and share some of their curiosities. So this contest actually kicks off in the fall, and the entries are due by the end of February. It's open to students really throughout the country in ages 5 to 14. This year there were actual 4,000 entries, and there were 180 students selected as winners of the 4,000 entries. And so we actually had several students selected as winners out of the 180 students. So I was going to recognize those students. I don't have examples of what their essay or their poem was this evening, but I do want the committee to recognize them for being one of the 180 students that were selected as winners. And as I said, we'll send them a letter of thanks and recognition that will be mailed out to all the families tomorrow. So those students are Mason Lukakis, Leah Kokinos, Tyler Johnson, Jason Verdon, Nathaniel Mercer, Abigail Costa, Michael Clark, and Alexis Gavin. So I'd like to thank those students for participating in the Curiosity Challenge and then also for being selected as winners. So congratulations to each and every one of them.
Congratulations.
There
was 4,000 entrants?
There were 4,000 entrants, 180 winners, and I should have done a count, but we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 8 students who were selected as winners, proud of that 180 out of 4,000. So that's an impressive accomplishment.
That's right. Well, good job, kids.
All right, so at this time, we're going to begin to move into our school committee reorganization, since this is our first meeting since the town election that was held on June 6th. So I would open it up to the committee to see if we take a motion for the person to be the chairperson of the committee. Jason.
I move Andy Cardarelli as chairperson.
So I have a motion for Andy Cardarelli as chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Jen Pratt. Remember, in our virtual meetings, all of our votes will be roll call votes. So we'll do a roll call vote to have Andy Cardarelli as the chairperson. Any discussion before we vote?
You still want to do it, Andy?
I will still do it if you want me to do it.
Okay, that's fine. That's the only discussion I need to hear.
Any other discussion? All right, Stephanie. Roll call vote. Stephanie Clarity.
Oh, aye.
Jason Greenwood.
Aye.
Jen Pratt.
Aye.
And Andy Cardarelli.
I abstain.
All right, so Andy has a vote of 3-0. He is now the new chairperson of the committee.
Thank you, everybody, for having such trust in me.
And I should say the new person, the continuing chairperson of the committee. And so at this point, Andy, I will turn the meeting over to you as the chairperson.
Okay, Scott. Hold on a second. Thank you, Scott. So we will go into vice chairperson. My computer's making noises here. I'm sorry if you could hear that. Do I have a nomination?
Sorry, Andy, I just want to double check. There have been a couple people who've come into the media. I just want to make sure James has.
Okay.
I don't think he has. But
okay.
If we just check, James O'Brien, just wanted to make sure that you have not come into the meeting. There were a couple that came in as iPhone and things like that. All right, so I'm going to say not hearing from James or seeing a hand raised that he is not here. So go ahead. Sorry, Andy.
Okay, next is vice chairperson. Do I have a nomination for this position from anyone?
I nominate Stephanie Clardy for vice chair.
Do I have a second?
I guess I'm the only one to second it, right? There you go. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the position?
Stephanie, do you want to do it?
Absolutely. I get to spend more time with Andy.
All right. There you go.
Ooh. Okay, anything else? Okay, I think Stephanie would be great myself. So all those in favor, it's a roll call vote. I'll start with Jason.
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Stephanie, are you voting?
I abstain, right?
You don't have to. You can vote for yourself.
That's okay. I'll abstain.
Okay. Okay, so it's 3-0, one abstention. Stephanie Clardy is our new vice chairperson. Recording secretary, do we have a nomination for this position?
I do. I move Jen Pratt as recording secretary with enthusiasm.
Jen,
I was warned that would happen.
Yeah. The new person usually gets this. Do I have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Not even going to ask if you want it, Jen, because I don't.
Come on, you asked everybody else.
I didn't have a choice last year, so sorry.
Jen, do you want the position?
I'll do it. It's fine.
Okay.
For clarification, though, I don't need to take notes if Jean is here, right?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Okay.
That is correct. Gina is the recording secretary, so you just serve if she's unavailable.
Gina, I appreciate you.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. We'll start with Stephanie.
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Jen?
I'll abstain.
Okay. So it's 3-0 with one abstention. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay, now we move on to subcommittees.
Do we have a list of who did these last time?
So I do have a list of who did these last time. And
Okay.
then also, just as a point of order or a point of clarification, everyone should know that actually we're going to be going into negotiation years. So we're going to the third year of all of our contracts. So, each of these groups will be meeting for negotiations at some point during the year. Most likely towards the middle end of the year, but we'll be beginning the negotiation process. So we want to think about that as we go through. But I can give you a quick summary of who was on each one before. So for teachers, it was Andy Cottarelli and Andrew Salavona. Historically, that is the chair and the vice chair. Paraprofessionals was Andrew Cottarelli and Andrew Salavona.
Right.
Custodians were James O'Brien and Jason Greenwood. Food service was Stephanie Clardy and Andrew Salavona. And bus drivers was Jason Greenwood. Yeah. And though you didn't actually have to do any specific work in that role last year, Jason, but this year you would if you stayed there. And then food service was Stephanie Clardy and Andrew Salavona.
I guess I have a point of order or question to ask here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What's the protocol with James not being here and appointing him to committees?
Yeah, so I was going to ask that, Andy. I don't know if, we obviously establishing the chair and the vice chair and the recording secretary. I don't believe, ultimately that we're going to be negotiating anytime between now and our next meeting. You're going to see at the end of our meeting, I'm going to make a recommendation that we actually meet in July, which historically the committee doesn't meet, but just with everything that's going on right now, I think it would make sense for the committee to meet in July. So I don't know if you want to hold this until the meeting or.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to table section D, parts 1 through 5 until the next meeting.
1 through 5. Okay, I don't have any problem with that too.
We have to vote on it. There was a motion, right?
We need a second. Yep.
We need a second. Anybody like to second that?
I'll second.
Table this until July?
Sorry, just a point of clarification on the agenda. I think it was listed as number 4, A through E. But same concept. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking at the, I'm looking at the
Yeah,
other.
so number 4A through E would be, the motion is to table 4A through E until our next meeting.
Wait a minute.
I'll second.
On subcommittees on my agenda here, it's D, subcommittees.
Yeah,
One
so
through-
that might just be a difference between what I put in the background and what's on the posted the agenda. If you look on the
Where
screen, I'm displaying the posted agenda. The posted agenda listed as 4A through E.
Where is the policy subcommittee on yours?
Oh, sorry. Policy. Sorry. Okay, I was reading it wrong. So I was reading it wrong. My mistake. So policy is 1, and
That'd
then
be D1?
negotiations. So you are doing D1 through 5. I was thinking you were just looking specifically at negotiations. My fault. So I read that wrong. I apologize. Forget I said anything.
Okay, no. Jason, can you modify your motion to read to table section D 1 through 5? And
That's what it was.
That's what his motion was.
Oh, is
That's
that
what
what it
it
was? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and we have a second for that. All right, roll call vote. All those in favor of tabling this appointments until our July meeting, section D 1 through 5, roll call vote. Jen, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Right, Jason,
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye, so it's 4-0 unanimous.
And Gina, can we just check with you because I messed that up? Can I just check that with you to make sure you have that accurately reflected in the minutes that the motion was to table section D 1 through 5?
That's correct. And I have the motion as to table it, section D 1 through 5, until the next school committee meeting.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's all right. No one's perfect. All right, now we move on to comments from the general public. I would like to, before we move on, look for hands up from anybody. If you do have a comment, put your hand up. You'll have up to 3 minutes to talk about anything on this agenda tonight. This will be, considering how much we have here, this will be people's only chance to speak on any of our items tonight. So if there's something you'd like to speak on, no matter what it is in the agenda, please raise your hand and Scott will recognize you. Anybody? I don't have it up in
I
front
did
of me.
not see any hands raised.
Okay, then let me get back to my spot here. All right, comments from the EAPC.
Good evening, everyone.
Tom?
Last school committee meeting before summer break. I don't think anybody could have predicted the school year ending quite this way. I hope that everybody in the educational community gets to enjoy some much needed time off with their family over the summer before we begin our discussions to plan for the start of the next school year. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tammy.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi, everyone. So I'm basically going to speak about the resolution that we proposed last meeting. History has its eyes on us. We are in a world where there is so much unrest and unknown. I attended a peaceful remembrance of George Floyd here in Carver last Friday. It was organized and attended by many of our former students. It was powerful. It is important that a community we recognize, as a community we recognize the unjust practices that happen all around us every day. Public education is one of the ways in which we can eradicate this injustice, but only if we understand our power and the power structures we support. People across the world are uniting for this very reason. Parents, students, and educators understand the need for a strong public education, but we need to help our elected leaders understand that too. This isn't about politics. It's about right versus wrong. It's about putting our children first and investing in their future, our future. On the agenda tonight is the resolution we, the EAPC, presented to the Carver School Committee last meeting. The resolution is asking the Carver School Committee to make a commitment to work with us and others, educators, families, and legislators, to fund our public schools. The resolution isn't just about the Federal HEROES Act. In order to fund our schools, we need to look at all levels, local, state, and federal. For the past decade, our schools in Carver have seen a decrease in funding. This decrease has left us just to the bare bones. Before the pandemic, we had already identified the need for more guidance counselors, nurses, and education support professionals. In the fall, we will have students coming back into a totally new educational environment after living through what we can all admit has been the most trying period of our collective lives, more than ever before. We will need these additional counselors. We will need more nurses and educational support professionals. Now more than ever, we need to be investing in our public schools. Reducing our staff for any amount will magnify the negative impact on our children. The less staff available means less opportunities and support which our children need, especially during this trying time. In fact, our children need more opportunities, such as the Pathways program currently being developed and implemented at the high school. The only way to make sure our children have what they need moving forward is to financially support our public schools. We need to ensure the state maintains its obligation to the Student Opportunity Act. We need to ensure our federal legislators improve and implement the HEROES Act. From 2011 to 2016, the revenue from local receipts in our town has been underestimated on average by 40%. In 2016, it was underestimated by 95%. To just put that in perspective, the state average of underestimating revenues is 16%. The town had estimated $2.3 million in revenue, when in fact $4.5 million in revenue from local receipts was collected. Carver needs to use the resources we have been putting away over many years to invest in our children. Our resolution includes the following. Therefore, be it resolved that the Carver School Committee supports the following. Congress should approve New Deal level funding for state and local governments in response to the economic crisis caused by this pandemic. Support and improve the HEROES Act and raise revenues progressively, if necessary, to ensure that they can fulfill their obligations to educate our students. The Massachusetts legislator and Governor Charlie Baker should fund public education, pre-K through higher ed, at the level needed to maintain current staffing and services. Fully fund the first year of the Student Opportunity Act and enable students in our state's economy to thrive as we begin recovering from the pandemic. And lastly, Carver will maintain its commitment to fully fund our public schools. The HEROES Act is one important part of this resolution. On May 15th, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the HEROES Act, a $3 trillion funding bill that would provide major new resources for public services, including public education. The entire delegation from Massachusetts voted in favor of the bill. The measure is now before the U.S. Senate and may come back to the House with changes. We need the strongest possible bill passed in both branches. Far too long, our children have been the ones who are shortchanged due to austerity budgets. Investing in public education is investing in our future. Our students deserve, now more than ever, all the support and resources our schools provide. I cannot tell you how many students and families I have become even closer to through our shared struggles with remote learning. The relationships we develop with our students and families bring strength to our community. This is not a time to look to reducing, cutting, or diminishing our schools in any way. Together, we are stronger. Together, we can do what is right for our children. History has its eyes on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, we're going to move on to approval of minutes from the May 14th, 2020 open session meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yep. I move to approve the minutes from the May 14th, 2020 open session.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those, any further discussion on those minutes or corrections?
Nope.
Okay. Jen, you weren't here, so you won't be voting on this one. You'll be abstaining. Okay, so all those, roll call vote to approve these minutes. Jason?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
I'm also an aye, and Jen would have to be an abstention, right?
Yes.
I'll let her say that, though. You should probably say it yourself then. I'm sorry.
Yes, I abstain. I was planning to abstain because I wasn't
Okay.
there, so I have no way to validate.
There you go. Okay, so we have a 3-0. 3, nothing, 1 abstention to approve. Now we move on to communications, class of 1948.
Okay, so the class of 1948, the Plymouth high school class of 1948, which was actually not Plymouth Carver at that time, but eventually became Plymouth Carver, was just concerned about all the troubles and hard times that our seniors have faced this year. So they thought it would be nice to donate an ice cream at various ice cream shops around the South Shore to the seniors of Plymouth and Carver. And the leader of this, his name's on the screen here. This is an article that was in Wicked Local, is George Scotti. I spoke to George Scotti a couple times. And they were just really passionate about doing something for the class of 2020 and recognizing them. And I just thought it was outstanding that they were thoughtful about adding Carver. They were the Plymouth class of 1948. It wasn't Plymouth Carver at that time. And I don't think it was Plymouth Carver for many years after that. But then obviously we were Plymouth Carver for a long time. And they just felt strongly about recognizing the kids in Carver as well as recognizing the students in Plymouth. So about a week and a half ago, they dropped off the gift certificates for us, and we're going to be distributing them out to all of our seniors. So I wanted to recognize this article in the paper and thank George Scotti and the Plymouth class of 1948 for their donation and make the committee aware of it.
Very nice. Very generous of them. All right, so we move on to reports from the superintendent.
Okay, we haven't had a lot of personnel movement in the past since our last meeting, but we have had 2. So we officially hired Teresa Vernazaro as our new food service director, as you, the community before, Kath Farrar, who's just done an outstanding job in terms of running our lunch program, is retiring, effective 6/30/20. And Teresa will be starting with us on 7/1. She's going to have some crossover time to work with Kath as we transition her into that position. So we're excited to have her joining us as the new district-wide food service director. We also hired Jen Wilson as the girls' varsity soccer coach. Those are our personnel updates and movements since our last meeting.
Okay.
HEROES Act resolution. Okay, so I'll pull the resolution up, and obviously Tammy just spoke to the HEROES Act resolution. At our last meeting, the APC asked the committee to consider discussing and passing the HEROES Act resolution that is attached that you've been able to review. The HEROES Act is an extensive federal stimulus package that has been passed by the House of Representatives. The act does contain $90 billion to be distributed to states as stabilization funds for public K-12 education. Obviously, there hasn't been a breakdown yet of how those funds would be distributed, but clearly part of that $90 billion would go to Massachusetts, and clearly part of that $90 billion would go then proceed on to the Carver Public Schools. So I put a lot of information into the school committee's background because this is really a comprehensive bill. The summary of the bill, which talks about all the funding pieces of it, is 71 pages alone. But I did give you all that information for people to review, and then we'll open it up for discussion from the committee in terms of how they'd like to proceed and their thoughts about the Student Opportunity Act. Jason has raised his hand.
Jason.
Sorry, I call it the Student Opportunity Act, the HEROES Act.
All right. So first, I want to just say thank you to the EAPC for just kind of for spearheading this whole thing. I've seen it all over the place. The dozens of emails, I've gotten text messages, the social media campaign, everything. And a lot of what Tammy said, putting children first, funding public schools at all levels. I don't think anyone is going to disagree that that shouldn't happen. My thought on this is that this is not a school committee responsibility. And I say that because the HEROES Act, as Scott just said, 71 pages just of overviews. All right. And I went through that. There's about 326 different things that are going to be funded through this HEROES Act, 3 of which would be a school committee issue. So less than 1%. And while I agree on those 3, and it doesn't matter my opinion on the rest of it, I don't think we should be diving into something where it's such a small piece of a huge act. Things that get into money for postal services and laptops for the House of Representatives and all this stuff. It's a fascinating read if you haven't read it. But the fact that it's so global, I honestly don't think that it's appropriate for the school committee to take this up. I think this is something the select board should take up, because that's more of a, almost all the pieces would deal with the select board. But in my opinion, this is not appropriate for a school committee to take up.
Okay. Anyone else? Stephanie, Jen?
Jen's physically raising her hand.
So my question is if we choose to just not take a vote on this and say, like, as Jason said, that maybe this isn't the role of the school committee, does it put us at risk for not receiving funds, or is there any detrimental ramifications that we're aware of?
No.
No, none that I'm aware of. There's no stipulation that you'd have to support this resolution to be funded.
Thank you.
Stephanie, do you have anything on this?
Yes.
Okay.
So while I understand what Jason is saying, however, I also appreciate that the odds of there just being a bill or an act that would solely just fund public education, I think the odds of that are slim. And I understand, given our role, I can see where there would be some questioning. I, as a parent, as a member of my community, I support it, but I understand if the committee doesn't want to adopt the resolution or support it, because I think that we can, for those of us that would like to, we can advocate individually. As I have been, I'm sure as many of us have been, because Lord knows with everything that's happening right now, school districts need funding across the nation. So I would be perfectly fine moving ahead with us adopting this, but I understand the point. So I just wanted to say that. Anything that I can do to try to help, fund public schools where they need to be, especially during these uncertain times, I'm up behind it. So.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Stephanie. I have a couple of things I've dug up on this. If you just give me a few minutes to read through it. My own point on this is that if this was solely a school funding issue, I would have no problem voting yes for this. But because this, as Jason said, is such a global type of piece of legislation, and it's a very partisan piece of legislation, because this was only put together by the House of Representatives, the Democrat majority in the House of Representatives. This wasn't a bipartisan bill. It was voted on, and some Democrats voted against it, but it did pass the House of Representatives. It is going to the Senate, and the Senate is now saying that it's dead on arrival. So even if we support this, this is not going to be the bill that is going to come out of the Senate and even be put up for a vote. But that being said, I just want to give you a few examples on some of the things that are in here that are not in our purview. The first two of this from an online magazine called The Intercept. The title of it was Bailouts and Lobbyists. The HEROES Act revises the Paycheck Protection Program, the fund that provides up to $10 million in forgivable loans to small businesses, so that now 501c6 trade associations and other 501c4 political advocacy groups may apply for the money. Originally, the program was only extended to certain 501c3 charitable and non-charitable organizations. The Intercept first reported the professional advocacy industry has leveraged its relationships with lawmakers to obtain access to bailout funds. This means lobbyists. The American Society of Association of Executives, which represents trade group leadership, mobilized over 100 nonprofit advocacy groups to pressure Congress to shift the criteria in the program. Number two, also from The Intercept, the HEROES Act delivers a win to healthcare insurance the healthcare insurance industry. The HEROES Act, in a new coronavirus relief bill introduced by House Democrats on Tuesday, includes protections for employer-sponsored insurance plans, which the healthcare industry has been lobbying Congress on for weeks. The proposed legislation includes subsidies for continued coverage for furloughed workers and people using COBRA, a continued health coverage plan for those who have lost work, even if they don't pay their premiums. The bill also creates avenues for premium assistance for certain categories of people who want to pay those premiums anyway, and who would open a special insurance enrollment period a week from the date it's enacted into law. It also provides 9 months of premium payments to health insurance plan administrators who don't receive them during the ongoing pandemic. The push to protect insurance premiums comes as some healthcare companies like United Health, Humana, and Cigna have reported profits during the pandemic amid record high unemployment levels and have boasted that they don't expect to take a financial hit. And thirdly, this is from the independent womensforum.org. The HEROES Act paid leave mandate would hurt America's working families. A new federal paid leave mandate also risks discouraging employers from voluntarily adopting or expanding paid leave benefits. Research suggests that expansions of government-provided health insurance have tended to displace employer-provided coverage rather than expand coverage to the uninsured. And as Representative Deloitte, I didn't get the state she was from, once testified before Congress, the company decreases its paid leave benefits in states that have adopted its paid leave programs. The private sector is currently on a roll with respect to paid leave, and it would disserve workers to put a stop to this trend. So those are just 3 examples of the multitude are in this bill that have nothing to do with education and nothing to do with our school committee. And like I said, if this was just about education, I would definitely consider voting for it. If it was money for education, I probably would vote to support it. But I myself cannot vote for in the positive for this. I mean, this is almost a $4 trillion bill, and the country has already spent $2 trillion on the CARES Act. The amount for this bill is almost 80% of the gross domestic product of the entire United States. So now we're going on almost $6 trillion we're spending in these spending bills if this is approved. So what we're really doing is to get by now is we're leveraging not only our children's futures, but their children's futures and their children's futures and their children's futures. So I think we need to slow down on the spending in this country because it's really putting.
Andy, Jason has had his hand up.
Oh, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you. I guess I don't know if this is for Andy or Scott. With resolutions, are we able to revise the wording?
Yeah, so one of the things I was thinking is certainly the school committee could make its own resolution, which I was kind of listening to the discussion.
Yeah.
I'm going to offer as a possible solution.
So
say that we reaffirm that we fully support funding the schools appropriately
yes.
at the current levels, and the school committee is 100% behind that. And the school committee can certainly be 100% behind that, but not necessarily support the HEROES Act individually. So we could make a revised resolution. I have a proposal if people want to hear it.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I want to see how close you were to mine, because the whole sticking point for me is the support and improve the HEROES Act. That's the point that it's not appropriate for this thing. However, like the whole second bullet, you know what I mean? Oh, great. You know what I mean? And part of the first bullet too. So it's just like, so Scott.
That's what I was working on.
Okay.
But Stephanie has her hand raised too.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was also just going to ask if we could amend it. So thank you, Jason.
All right, so I'll read this as a possible amended resolution. The Carver School Committee hereby resolves to support a second federal stimulus package to ensure that the state of Massachusetts can fund public education, pre-K through higher ed, to the level to maintain current staffing and services and enable students in our state's economy to thrive as we begin recovering from the pandemic. I pulled out the fully fund the first year of the Student Opportunity Act, but we can certainly add that in.
And where would this resolution go, Scott, if we voted to support that?
It would go into the minutes, it would go into the public record. I'm sure it would probably maybe be in the local paper. I wouldn't necessarily, if the committee wanted me to, I could certainly send that to all of our local legislators who represent us both at the state and at the federal level. So I could take that resolution and say, you should just be aware the school committee passed this resolution.
So the one that you just read, you modified the second bullet, correct? Did you get rid of the first one completely?
Yeah, so I just said, the Carver School Board hereby supports, and I modified it by saying that I think a second stimulus package could be beneficial to the Carver Public Schools. So that was my amendment, is support a second federal stimulus package to ensure, and then this is where I go into the mass piece, go into the second bullet, to ensure the state of Massachusetts can fund public education, pre-K through higher ed, at the level to maintain current staffing and services. The committee can make a decision whether I want to add in fully fund the first year of the Student Opportunity Act and enable students in our state's economy to thrive as we begin to recover from the pandemic. So I was saying the concept of another stimulus package to do these things in Massachusetts. But you can, certainly someone else can propose a counter resolution, or actually, technically I can't even propose anything.
Yeah.
Someone would have to say what Scott said. I make that motion.
Well, this is nothing we have to do right now, right?
Nope.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jason.
No, I was going to suggest that if we're definitely having a July meeting, I would say let's have it revised and have the language that we kind of want without the HEROES Act part in it then. But if we're not having a July meeting, we shouldn't wait till September or August.
We're having a July meeting.
It's later in the agenda. We can talk about it now. I'm going to propose a July meeting just because, with all the things going on, I think it makes sense for us to meet in July.
Okay.
Well, later in the meeting, we'll have to pick a meeting date. That is on the agenda.
That's fine. As long as we're having a meeting before we kind of fully roll into school year 21. And so I think if we can have this or something revised, written a little bit, and have that proposed for the beginning of next meeting,
Yep.
then that, I think.
So
So James can have his 2 cents also, and so we can kind of just wrap our heads around the new readings and the meaning of it as well. So that's my suggestion.
Stephanie has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie.
Stephanie is still muted.
I think I just did not put my hand down.
Okay, Stephanie hasn't put her hand down. Okay.
My apologies.
So
all right,
we wouldn't necessarily need any motion or action on that. This was not, so this was not on the agenda. This was a discussion of what steps we wanted to take next. So we could just say, you could give me that direction as the superintendent to begin to work on a revised resolution, which I could, get some input from the committee members in terms of developing, and then bring that to the July meeting to present to the committee to review.
all right. Let me add one more thing before we move forward. Jen, do you have any input in this? Do you want to add anything to this before we give Scott that direction?
I guess from my perspective, I think all of us want to see our schools funded. I would never not want to see the schools funded. Part of why I chose to run for school committee was to be able to advocate for funding and making sure that my kids would have the best opportunity. It sounds like whether we choose to adopt this or not adopt this, I don't think it actually has any real ramifications on whether we get funding. So I'm just kind of questioning why.
I think, so Jen, I'll respond to that a little bit if that's okay with you. My thought on that is obviously, I think this resolution is not only being presented to the Carver School Committee, it's being presented across the state of Massachusetts and probably one similar to it in other states. I don't know that for a fact, that's a guess, but I know this is being presented to other school committees. So I think it's the concept of the school committee taking a collective voice in terms of making a statement to, lobby on the behalf of schools, both at the state and the federal level. And sometimes, if you have multiple entities supporting any type of initiative, that could gain support through your legislators. So I think that's the concept of it. So if the committee was to pass a modified resolution, it would still be saying that message that the school committees are saying, look, we're in dire situations here in some ways, and we need the support. We all need to work together, both at the state and federal level, to see what we can do to appropriately and ensure that we appropriately support education.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Scott.
All right, so just one last thing. I want to thank Tammy, even though doesn't look like we're going to support this resolution. I want to thank Tammy for her passion and bringing this to our attention anyway. And she always advocates for more funding and what's best for the kids, and I appreciate that. I also want to thank everyone who reached out to us and emailed us. I appreciate that as well, and I hope my comments earlier explain why for myself, why I wouldn't support this resolution. So Scott,
again, Andy?
oh, sorry, I don't have the list in front of me.
No, that's fine. I'm watching it.
Okay.
Jason.
No, and the one thing I just want to add off of what Andy just said is I would really encourage this same resolution, just instead of Carver School Committee, Carver Select Board, since it's that bigger issue, you know what I mean? So, and it kind of deals with everything there. So that's, again, I want to say thank you.
It's brought to the Board of Selectmen to review as well.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
that's your suggestion almost.
Yes, that would be my suggestion as well, just because when it comes to the HEROES Act and all that stuff, that's more their lane than our lane. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, there are just things that that come in front of us that proposed in front of us that just aren't in our lane. You know what I mean, politically, and it's just not in our realm of what we do. Even though we all have our own personal political views and thoughts in town politics and government, or I should say town government, we try to keep the partisanness of our own opinions out of it and do what's best for the town. But in our old school committee, us saying yes or no to some federal policy that's proposed really seems way out of the lane to me. But anyway, so Scott, can you put that together and have it for discussion in July?
Yep. So I will work on a resolution. I'll reach out to the members too to get some input from you and your thoughts, and then I'll put something together to put on the July agenda for the committee to review.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Let me get back to my agenda here. Hold on a sec. Lost my place. Sorry about that. Doing it just by my phone. Okay. Oh, here we go. 21 budget.
Slide 21 budget.
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem.
Is Brad with us?
Brad is with us, so he may add into pieces. So I'm going to do an overview here. And actually, I'm sharing with the committee a presentation, and I talked to Andy about this. I've actually shared with the teachers as well and the staff in the schools, so everyone had a kind of sense of where we stood and the steps we were taking. So we're not asking the committee to take any action on any budget items at this meeting. So this is kind of an overview of where we stand as a committee and as a town. And Brad might add some pieces in, and certainly people can raise their hand and ask questions as we go. But this is a big picture overview. So as you all know, and as you remember, that in March, the school committee passed the budget for the school for next year for FY21. That budget that we passed matched the number that had been requested to us by the town to try to match. And you see the bottom line there of $24,237,099. Obviously, we did a detailed budget presentation at that time. And at that time, we said our FY21 expenses were projected to be $25,857,721. And we identified the offsets that are labeled here. We get offsets from federal grants, Title I, special ed, that's about $650,000. We get offsets from circuit breaker and school choice, $465,000 and $400,000 respectfully. And those have asterisks next to them because eventually what we're going to say is that we have some flexibility in FY21, and some of that flexibility is going to rely on our school choice accounts and our circuit breaker accounts. Those are things we've talked about before as a school committee. And as later on in the presentation, we'll come back to those. We had an offset for Plymouth County Retirement Board of $55,000, which was really Brad had explained that at the time that we had passed the budget, that was actually an expense that the town was taking on the town side for this year. It was the increase in our cost of the Plymouth County Retirement Board. And then we also had an offset for money that we bring in through pre-K tuitions. So that's, like I said, big picture overview of what the school committee already passed and voted in favor of. So where does our funding come as a school district? About 41% of our money comes from Chapter 78 from the state, and about 58% of our revenue, of our money for the budget, comes from local taxes. And why that's important, that split of 58% and 42%, kind of gets into our next slide. The reality is right now, as a point of comparison, the state's FY20 budget was approximately $43.4 billion. In January, as we were beginning the budget process before the pandemic hit, the governor proposed an FY21 budget of $44.6 billion. And that actually included significant increases in Chapter 78 of state aid to schools through the Student Opportunity Act. And we talked about that at the time. Carver's share of the Student Opportunity Act was actually relatively small, about $47,000. But some districts were getting significantly more money, and at the time we talked about that. Well, actually, we talked about the Student Opportunity Act a lot over the past year. But some funding for the Student Opportunity Act, Student Opportunity money, was part of the governor's FY21 budget. But obviously, since that time, since that budget was proposed, the pandemic has hit. And right now, the state is currently projecting, you hear different projections, anywhere around a $6 billion shortfall in revenue for FY21. The big number there is this represents a 13.4% decrease from the governor's proposed budget. So the governor was proposing a budget of $44.6 billion. The state saying they're estimating they're going to be $5 or $6 billion short of that in state revenue. So what happens with this 13.4% gap? The town is also projecting shortfalls in its local receipts. Ultimately, in terms of the number one driver of town revenue is property taxes, and the town is not projecting a shortfall in property taxes. Ultimately, saying people have to pay their property taxes. There's some deferments that have been allowed through the CARES Act in property taxes, and there is a little bit of fear that maybe some people will be unable to pay their property taxes. But the town is not actually projecting a huge decrease of what they're going to bring in. Where their fear of their decrease and where they're projecting is going to be in other permitting places like excise tax, building permits, other town fees. Meals taxes in many ways going to be non-existent. So the town also feels like they're going to be short. Now, they don't have a solid number on that yet, but they know that the revenue that they were projecting to bring in for FY21 isn't realistic either. So even when they developed, what they felt was the appropriate number for the school's budget, that $24,237,099, that was based on pre-pandemic projections of revenue, which the town also now feels like that's going to be short. So what does that mean? What it means is right now there's just really too many questions. What will the state's final budget be? How are they going to deal with this $5 or $6 billion shortfall? The state is actually projecting that they may not pass a state budget until August 31st. Typically, the state passes their budget by the end of June. And typically, at this point, we know exactly what we're going to get in state aid. We know what our Chapter 70 number is. Right now, we do not know what our Chapter 70 number is. That's a huge question. So how will this shortfall affect Chapter 70? How is it going to affect the Student Opportunity Act? There's been some discussion of, the first thing that they may consider defunding is the Student Opportunity Act. And obviously the HEROES resolution that the EAPC brought to us this evening and some of our discussions earlier are saying that, we don't want to support that as a school committee, don't want to support not funding the Student Opportunity Act. But we don't know what's going to happen with that. Will there be another federal stimulus package? Also tied into our earlier discussions this evening of, is there going to be a second amount of money that comes to the states and then to the towns? And then we have the question of, we don't know what school's going to look like, which we're going to get later on in our agenda, talking about reopening and some of the questions around reopening. So our general feeling, both with the school and the Board of Selectmen, is these are too many questions to start changing budgets or asking groups to take cuts or reductions in their operating budgets at this time. We've been working very closely with the new town administrator, Rick LaFawn, myself, Brad, Rick, and Meg LeMay have been meeting on a regular basis to talk about how we want to approach the FY21 budget. And what the town has come up as their approach is kind of a two-step process. So step one, there is going to be a town meeting on June 29th. And what the town is going to bring forward, what the Board of Selectmen is going to bring forward to the town, is to pass the FY21 budgets that were approved in March. So that number that the school committee voted in March, that is going to be the number on the town warrant for the school's budget, the $24,237,099. And there's going to be an acknowledgement at that meeting that we have all these questions and that there's probably going to have to be a second town meeting in the fall. So step two would be a fall town meeting. And the town would then probably look to reduce budgets, but they'll be reducing it without.
That's why he said we'd be okay until October.
With fewer questions. So at that point in October, state aid will be known. We'll have more information on a second stimulus package. We'll have more information on local receipts. Like I know, for example, the example I'm giving is that there's some discussion whether King Richard's Fair is coming or not. The town, our local receipts for meals tax for the town, the two biggest sources of revenue are actually Edaville Railroad and King Richard's Fair. So it's not the local, obviously the local restaurants, people paying meals tax, but the town says the majority of that money actually comes from Edaville and King Richard's. Edaville has announced they are not opening this year, so that's definitely going to be a shortfall in the meals tax. And there's some question about what's going to happen with King Richard's Fair. But in October, we'll know that. We'll know if King Richard's Fair is here or not in October, because they would be here. We know what school's going to look like in October. So the general feeling is, let's not project, let's not make guesses, let's not cut or try to make reductions in budget based on all these unknowns. Let's have the town vote and pass the proposed budgets at town meeting on June 29th, with the knowledge that there'll probably have to be a second town meeting once the state's budget is set and some of these other questions are answered. And at that time, we probably will face some sort of a reduction, both on the town side and the school side. But what's going to be our approach to this? Our goal 100% is maintaining all staff and student programs. We're going to continue to work closely with the town and the new town administrator. There's going to be some challenges, but we do have some flexibility to meet a reduction in the fall. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit with the committee is, where does that flexibility lie? And we're not going to put hard numbers on any of this yet, but we want to say that we want the committee to know there is flexibility to face if there is a reduction that we have to make at that time. So first of all, one thing that is a known number, so there's a hard number there, is the CARES Act money. So the first federal stimulus package, called the CARES Act, the Carver Public Schools is receiving $140,000 of money through the CARES Act. That money can be spent in FY20 or FY21. We don't need to spend it in FY20, so we're going to be allocating that money in FY21, so we can help offset our budget with that $140,000. Now, we have realized some savings at the end of this year. The reality is, not having our buildings open have had our utility costs down. We haven't been doing a lot of purchasing. So through the closure, though we've paid all of our staff, we've still realized savings in the proposed budget. And so we're going to be able to shift some of those savings from this year by using less of some of the offsets money we had planned to use for this year in circuit breaker, in school choice, and that's going to give us flexibility to use more of those funds in the FY21 budget. Another way is through, legally under the law, there's only certain places that the school district and the school committee can have revolving funds or things that we can prepay for. One thing you can prepay is an out-of-district placement. So we have, for example, next year we have a senior who's going to graduate, will come off our books at the end of next year, who's going to be in an out-of-district placement, that we're actually going to pay that tuition out of this year's budget. I believe that cost of that budget is about $55,000. That actually saves us $55,000 in next year's budget. So that's a real number. So that's something we can do. So Brad and I are looking at everything we can do to realize some of our savings from this year to support us in FY21 as we face a possible reduction in October. We also have the town reserve account, so we can budget a little more tightly when those are all things we've talked about before in terms of special education and utilities. We could make some minor adjustments in some operational line items if we needed to. And then depending on what school looks like, we might have to consider some staffing changes. But if school looks like exactly like it did before the pandemic, which I don't know if that's realistic at the start, but if it did, obviously we want to our goal is to maintain all staffing and programs. But if the changes in school looks different, may cause some staffing. I don't want to pick out any particular group, but there are realities that, right now, in our current situation, the majority of our employees are working just as many hours, if not more, than they always have. Some of our employees, quite honestly, are working less hours, but are still being paid their full salaries or their full hourly wage for the amount of hours they're contracted for. And quite honestly, there are employees in the district who, just based on their role, are not working, who have been paid. And that was a commitment the school committee made, that was a commitment I made, and that we have done through June 30th. But after July 1st, I think if we're still in that situation, the school committee is going to have to look at those things. And if there is, for some reason, based on what we look like and how school is set up, employees who are not working, we might have to consider staff changes at that time. And that also would provide us some flexibility in terms of our FY21 budget. So what's our big takeaways? The big takeaways is the town is going to present the FY21 budget at town meeting on June 29th. We will most likely face some sort of budget reduction in the fall, but we believe we have flexibilities to manage a fall budget reduction. And that we might have to consider some staffing based upon what reopening looks like at that time. The only other thing I wanted to mention here that's not in the presentation is, so I've gotten some questions about, I know the state put out some recommendations about purchasing of PPE, personal protective equipment, and we actually have already been actively doing that. So we've been using some of this year's money because we have some availability in this year's money. So we're already purchasing some of that PPE based on the guidance that the state put out. Dave, Brad, and I have been meeting about that and moving forward on that. And then we're also, people should know, and Brad, I don't know if you want to give some more detail about this, and I think the town's actually still looking some more detail about this, but Plymouth County, as part of the CARES Act, also received a sum of money that can support PPE. And so we might be able, there's a good chance we're going to be able to be reimbursed for the purchases we're making now for all of our PPE equipment. But Brad, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so right now there's in between with where exactly you have to apply first. So if you have to apply for FEMA right now is your first source of money. If it gets denied that, you can apply for the Plymouth County money. But there's some back and forth right now of, if we know some expenses won't be eligible for FEMA, can we skip over even asking FEMA and submit directly to Plymouth County? Through the CARES Act, Plymouth County received $90 million that they will be able to reimburse districts or actually municipalities in general for any expenses that they incurred under certain criteria. So some examples we've been talking about is obviously the PPE equipment, that if we can fund it off of FY20 budget, not only does that help us get the equipment in advance, because we need it, honestly, the lead times on them are kind of ugly for some of them. So we have that ready to roll. Obviously, we don't want to be one of the districts that come September 1, we don't have the equipment and we can't open up. So we're getting an advance on that. But if we doesn't get reimbursed for any reason, if one of them gets kicked out, at least we know we have it covered and we've already prepaid for it. So you'll see in the notes too, I talk about in the background agenda more about the Plymouth County and the PPE equipment and whatnot. Scott, one thing I just want to add on to this is if you can go back one slide.
Yep, we can. That was going to be my next step, Brad. I was going to ask you what you wanted to add in.
Yep. So for prepay out-of-district placements, you can only pay a full year for collaboratives only. Private tuitions, you can prepay up to 3 months worth, but you can pay a full year of a collaborative. We did that, and I think the collaborative we paid was about $51,000. Circuit breaker, you can only carry 1 year of what you got from a prior year. So we're going to we used everything we could this year, but we will have funding next year, we hope. They are going to fund it at 75%. We are assuming this year, and that, again, is money. We've created balances that we're now 1 year to a good. So when we budget for FY21, we have a hard number that we know we don't have to roll the dice on. We know we have that money in the bank, which is always good. School choice, we've actually been able to fully refund what we were going to offset in FY20, which I'll talk about in the budget transfers. But we have built up that account that we really can weather the storm next year in terms of any FY21 budget reductions we have. But reality is that money really is one-time use, and then it comes back into your operational budgets, which the real, I don't want to say storm we're going to have, but the real shortfall we're probably going to see is not until FY22, just based on we have the money, one-time money to cover us for FY21, the school and town does, but it's FY22. If revenues stay down where they're projecting for FY21 into FY22, that's where we're really going to see a shortfall.
And so the only piece I want to add to this before we open it up to some questions is, obviously when we first started discussing this plan of, facing a possible budget reduction in the fall, I was really concerned about that because just the reality is that's not the way schools operate. And this is a very unusual time, but most of the time schools know by June, and if they have to make decisions, they make decisions, and then move forward and plan for that. And it's not good for a school to face reductions in November. But as Brad said, we've really looked hard at our budget and believe we're going to be able to weather the storm that comes, whatever that storm happens to be in the fall, and not have to reduce staff or change programming for students in FY21. And then we'll have to see what the long-term ramifications are in terms of revenues that come in. There's a lot of factors that go into the next year's budget. But we believe we're in the place that, a good place that we can tell the community that we're going to be able to work through that in the fall as we go through it. But we just want to be upfront and transparent that the reality is we're going to face most likely some sort of reduction in the fall. So I guess at that point we'll open it up to any questions, but we're not asking the community to take any action tonight because you've already passed the FY21 budget that's going to be on the town meeting warrant for June 29th.
All right. Anybody have any questions, discussion, comments? No? Okay. Oh, Stephanie has her hand up.
Stephanie?
My apologies. My mouse battery died. Took me a minute to figure that out. I just wanted to say thank you for the information, and thank you for your diligence in keeping such a close eye on everything and for keeping us informed. I'm hopeful, and I just appreciate all the information. So thank you, Brad, and thank you, Scott.
Okay, I agree with that. Jen, do you have anything?
No, I would just echo those sentiments. I think it's great that you guys are being super proactive and looking ahead and planning appropriately. So it definitely gives us a good confidence level. Thank you.
Excellent. And Jason, I think you were a no, right? No comment? Okay. All right. I agree. Thank you for the update. And we'll, I'm sure this is something we'll be keeping our eye on very closely. And hopefully, you're right, Scott, hopefully we won't need any cuts in the fall. Anyway, so on to summer programming.
Okay, so in terms of summer programming, I'm going to ask Karen Tiger, our Director of Special Ed, to give a kind of general overview of our summer school offerings. I do want to say that DESE has released formal guidance on summer school that I linked into the school committee's background. And if Karen, if you want me to bring that up, I certainly can. The guidance recommends that school districts consider doing some face-to-face summer offerings for some of our most at-risk students. The majority of our programming that Karen's going to talk about this summer is going to be virtual, but we are going to be offering some face-to-face opportunities for some of our intensive students in special education, for some of our therapies, and also some face-to-face testing. And Karen's going to give us an overview of that. So I'll turn it to Karen. And Karen, I don't know if you want me to pull up the guidance or.
I have it up here if there's any questions. I have it on my computer. I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about all the programs.
Just if you can give us a good summary would be great.
Okay. So because what I really wanted to make sure people were aware of is that we are going to try to do some in-person for some of our more severe needs kids. And we have been in communication with the families and staff around that and are still kind of planning the details, but I can give you a general idea of what that would look like. Before we got that guidance, we did set up like a full menu of remote services that pretty much covers everything that we usually do in the summer, just made them remote. And we were able to also actually offer some extra services. So things like support for the summer reading that can be open to all middle high school students, and some credit recovery courses for the high school that can be open to all students as well. And I think they're trying to do some enrichment remote programs for the elementary school, which would be open for all students. So that was kind of a little bit of a positive side of having to do remote, was we were able to offer some extra things and open it up to more kids. But for the most part, everything from pre-K all the way through, we're providing remotely as if we, as we have always done, the same types of programs. For the in-person, for our more severe needs kids, what we are looking to do is do make small groups of 3 or 4 students with 2 staff, and they would each have their own, their own room. They'd come in for about 2 hours a day, 3 days a week. Parents have offered to drive, many of them that are able to, so that minimizes the number of kids we need on the buses. And I think we'll be able to keep it looks like we'll be able to keep the buses to under 6 kids on each bus. We'll probably run a morning session and an afternoon session. And most all the parents in those programs do have opted to do this. The state has told us, though, that if parents don't want to do it, we still need to provide the remote services for them, which we are able to do. So we'll continue with that as well. I don't know if you have any other questions. We're still waiting for guidance on more detailed guidance on safety precautions and procedures that need to be put into place, and they're supposed to be out for next week. We do know basically that I think they've said no more than class sizes of 12, but obviously we're keeping it way less than that. Depending on students and whether they can wear masks and what their exposure risks are, there's a chart that gives like the different PPE that needs to be used for different types of student needs. And so we would follow that. And like Scott said, I think the district already has most of the stuff that we would need to provide for that. So I don't know if there's anything else, Scott, that you wanted me.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And then we just want to make sure the committee was aware that we were going to start doing some face-to-face programs. Primarily, I think it'll be kids K through 12, but we're all going to be at the elementary school. The kids do have to wear face masks if they can. If it's not appropriate for them to wear face masks, they don't have to, in terms of the guidance. And I don't know if there's any other specific questions for the committee.
And I will just say, too, that the guidance for determining which kids should get in person, the state did provide some guidance around that, which obviously the severe needs population fits into that guidance, but there are some other students or populations of students that could potentially fall under that kind of more at risk or high needs students. And we are reaching out, we are talking about that as a administrative team, and reaching out to some of the teachers and just guidance and just finding out if there are other really high needs students that might not be in that population that we might be able to provide some services for. It will be, it'll be a small number, as recommended by the state. The majority of it will be done continued remote, but we will be able to open up to some of these students and the therapists too, so PT, some speech, some OT. We will probably also do some testing. We haven't been able to do testing, so we have kind of a backlog of assessments that need to be done. That would also be something we will probably try to do some of over the summer.
Okay, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Karen or Scott? I can't see hands, so.
There's no hands raised right now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen. One of the things I was concerned about, and just from my reading, is that with the lockdown happening, some of the more intensive special ed students we have might be kind of getting left behind. And have you heard any like negative input, like basically from classes being canceled from, on these certain students?
No, actually, it's been amazing to see what some of these, what some of our teachers and some of our students and families have been able to do. I've been like really impressed that that population was the one that people were so worried about, and they were the ones that kind of jumped on right away and have been pretty consistently participating. Now, of course, the strain on families, and because most of those students can't be very independent. And as I think Scott had pointed out at an earlier meeting, some of the siblings have really stepped up and helped out. But I think we've done a great job.
Great.
That group.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much as always. Okay, so moving on to school improvement plans.
Okay, school improvement plans for next year, both the elementary school and the middle high school. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to actually pair school improvement plans and then end of the year activities kind of together. Maybe have Ruby talk about her school improvement plan and then some of the activities they have planned at the end of the year. And then Mike can do his school improvement plan and then talk about some of the events at the middle high school, if that's okay with the committee.
Fine by me.
Topics together.
That's fine.
Jason, raise his hand.
Yeah, just on our agenda, we don't have access to anything on.
Yeah, sorry about that. I will pull them up. So I'll pull them up on the screen for people to view. And in terms of the school improvement plans, I will say that this is a difficult year for people to have to do that, having school been closed, and then kind of projecting into next year. We don't even necessarily know what next year is going to look like. So I think both principals have really taken the concept of we're going to try to continue and build on some of the things we've been doing this year and look at it as eventually we're going to have some sort of return to normalcy in school. They can't necessarily lay out a school improvement plan that talks about specifically how we're going to approach September because we don't even have the guidance for that yet. So none of that's necessarily included in their school improvement plans, which makes sense. And then the other thing is generally the school improvement plans are informational for the committee. We're not necessarily taking a vote on each of the plans. So I'll pull them up for people to view as Ruby and Mike review them. Any other questions? All right, so Ruby, do you want to go first, and we'll do the elementary school improvement plan, and then kind of elementary end of the year events.
Sure.
And Ruby, I can pull it up on the screen, the plan for everybody to see. Make it a little bigger, and I'll try to follow your lead.
Thank you. All right, so good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to just introduce my school council members for the 2019-2020 school year. I'm really proud of this team. It's one of the bigger school council teams that I've had in quite a while. I'll start with the teachers. We have Anne-Marie Blackton, who's one of our pre-K classroom teachers, Pat Tobin, who is our English language teacher, Joyce Macrina, who is a grade 3 teacher, and Michelle Upton, she's a parent who has a child in kindergarten. Bill Cullum, who has a child in 5th grade. Ryan Reset has a 5th grader and a kindergartner. And Shannon Alzheimer has a kindergarten student. And so this team met with me monthly up until COVID. And then we met once during the month of May. We had a virtual meeting. And so I'd like to thank them, and special thanks to Paula Foley, who is our assistant principal and early childhood coordinator, Tanya Dawson, who is assistant principal also and helps with just a range of things, focusing on just kind of a big student focus with recognizing students. And she also focuses on grades 3 through 5, working with the teachers and the kids. Jen Kelly, our math coach, Kate Moore, our reading coach and teacher, and Meredith Erickson, as well as Karen Teichert. So all of those folks have worked with me throughout the year with regard to the school council and the school improvement plan.
Hey, Ruby,
so, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Jason, just to your point earlier, I did link these in the background. Do your links not working?
It
I
said
just went back and checked.
it said you don't have access to this.
Oh, so I didn't know that. So I linked the improvement plans in there, but I didn't know you guys couldn't open them. At first when you said that, I was like, did I not link them in? But I did. But I'm sorry about that. I don't know why you weren't able to access them. So I apologize for that.
Fine, Scott. The meeting's not ruined yet. It's fine.
So Ruby,
Okay.
I'm going to scroll down to the.
Sure. So as Scott had mentioned, I have, like 10 sort of big picture goals. The first few on the first page that Scott has on the screen right now are really a continuation or an enhancement of some things that we've been focusing on for the last couple of years. I'm just going to briefly touch on the safe and supportive schools here. The first goal, working with all of our students in terms of improving their competencies in social emotional learning, and we do that by training teachers so that they in turn, and train all our staff so that they in turn can help to equip our kids with tools that will help them to better regulate themselves. And then the second goal is around the, working with Tier 2 kids. So that Tier 2 instruction, we use a universal screener where our teachers respond to a series of questions, and from there we determine students that fit that criteria and build small groups. The small groups are serviced and supported by our counseling team. This year we were able to use our SRO as well, our BCBA, and an assistant that we had this past year to support small group students, as well as our school psychologist. So the groups would meet with 4 or 5 students, the Tier 2 students, to work on social emotional regulation skills. And that I've talked to you before about. We've been working on that really just a year. So from last March to this March is 1 full year. So that's a program that we're going to continue to enhance. A couple of things staying on that first goal, the safe and supportive schools goal. We've been working on strengthening our protocols regarding safety, and in this sense of safety, I mean more regarding intruder. So we worked a lot with the Alice procedures. This was the first year that we took a huge step to have all of the students and staff exit the building at the same time and go to our safe place. So for an elementary school our size, I felt like that's just a huge accomplishment. So we're continuing to work on that process. The goal really is to continue to work on that reunification plan. One of the new things that I've added, as Scott has mentioned, we've added a couple things. One of them is working with Scott and the administrative leadership team, as well as the teachers, to establish a school safety team. And the safety team is going to work on preparation for reentry. So we know that there's protocols and procedures that we need to meet, and all of those will absolutely meet the local, state, and federal guidelines. And so this is really all about COVID-19 and what we need to do to help to support the staff and the students and the parents with regard to transitioning back to school. So as Scott mentioned, we don't have all of the guidelines yet, and so that's going to be a work in progress. Directly related to that, we know that our staff and our students we're going to need to increase our social emotional learning competencies as a result of sort of the new normal. We know that the children will be impacted. All of our children will be coming to us with some level of trauma, so to speak, with regard to what they're experiencing in their households. So we want to make sure that we are adjusting with them and working with the staff and the students and parents with regard to that new normal. And then the last piece there is, again, strengthening the faculty and staff so that we can increase our knowledge and our understanding of how to better support the students as a result of COVID-19. And then, so back to Scott. Great, you're doing great, thank you. The community engagement piece. So here we've been working with outreach. We've been reaching out to community partners. Mrs. Foley specifically has worked with some of our our area preschool programs and childcare centers. She will continue to do that with regard to professional development. And essentially what the work does is it helps our students and our families so that when they enter our kindergarten program, they're better prepared. So that's a big focus of what she does, training and helping other area organizations, preschools, providing professional development. We want to continue to provide or increase our home support with regard to parent-teacher relationships. One of the things that we heard regarding our teaming teams, our 3rd, 4th, and 5th teams this year, is really looking at a way to have more time with our parents for parent-teacher conferences. So those pieces are really important that we work with our teachers on and our parents to find opportunities to connect as a teaming teaching team, as opposed to just one teacher. We also are going to combine our back to school and our find your classroom and meet your teacher night this year. Although I say that and I don't really know what it's going to look like. So a lot of what I'm talking about here is, yes, we're putting things in place as if we were, on the one hand, we have to set dates, we have to continue to move forward, but we know that there are some events that will change or we will have to adjust based on the guidelines that we receive from the DESE. We're going to work on, there's one piece that we've been trying to work on with regard to mental health support. So we recognize that for our parents, even prior to COVID, accessing mental health supports is quite challenging for them. So one of our goals is to work with community mental health to have site-based counseling, for example, after school or in the evenings at school. It is an opportunity for us and for our parents, just because having a health-based supports at school builds partnerships again and helps to support parents and increases that student and parent and family engagement. Then another area that we're going to focus on again is the communication with families. So with COVID, we've really had to make some adjustments and find ways to reach out to our parents through newsletters and pretty much all electronic. So we know going into the fall, based on what things look like, we need to continue to communicate very effectively and efficiently with our parents with regard to the changes, the protocols, and all of the needs that come up. We've seen changes from one day to the next, so we know how important it is to get information out to parents very quickly and efficiently. So we want to continue to do that. And I had talked already about the parent-teacher conferences. So then next, under Elevate Teaching and Learning, this area here is really all about professional development. And Meredith and Scott, actually, all of our leadership team has been working with our teachers, as they always do, to ensure that our PD is in line with what teachers are seeing are areas of need and what our students need. So we will continue to provide the Bridges training. So we're in year 2 of implementation. We worked with our K1 and 2 teachers as they implemented Bridges last year. And then this year it will be 3, 4, and 5. And Meredith, if there's anything that you would like to share about that. I know I'm just giving really big sort of picture overview on PD, but you feel free to jump in at any point. We also are going to continue to work with our staff on understanding the diverse needs of our students and our staff in our school community. And we do that through professional learning opportunities, and including cultural events. We were hoping to have a multicultural night actually, and it would have taken place in May at our school. So we know we have to continue to be creative and find ways to do that, even if we are in more of a remote learning situation or even in a blended learning situation. So those are all things that we will continue to work on. Mrs. Foley has been working with our kindergarten and preschool team on the NIAC accreditation process. They were actually scheduled to come to Carver Elementary to do their sort of like their evaluation process in March or April. But because of COVID, they delayed the process, and we will be hosting them. They will let us know at some point in the fall when they will be coming to visit us. They don't give us too much notice, maybe just a few days, and then they come and they spend some time visiting us and essentially evaluating our program through observations, interviews, and looking at portfolios. And then next is, we understand that we're going to need to adjust our professional learning plan to address the student gaps or areas of weakness that will result from remote learning or, you know, the COVID-19 situation that we're in now. So with regard to that, we will look to see what professional development we need to focus on and support our teachers so that it's in line with what the students need. Our curriculum team is actually going to establish a reading curriculum council, which actually I know Meredith and Kate Moore started to work on that several weeks ago and have sort of been meeting and getting ready to roll that out. It'll probably be a year or two long process, but I know Meredith will talk more about that piece. And then again, just continue to increase our teacher competencies for the new normal learning environment once we have more information from the ESC and our next steps for reentry into school. And then the last piece here under leverage leadership policy and funding. One of the things that we're looking to pilot is the NWEA map. It's an assessment tool that we're going to pilot in grades 1 and grades 5. And the reason that we're going to pilot it in those grades, first I'll start with 5th grade. We have a couple we have a few staff members that have some experience with this assessment tool. It's a tool that will help us look at how students are progressing in reading and math at the elementary school. The middle school is looking to pilot this as well in a couple of the grades, and so we felt that 5th grade would be a good grade to pilot it because we could help to bridge and connect with what the 6th grade teachers are working on with the students as well. And then in grades 1, we've been looking for a fluency tool. We've used Dibbles for many years now, and we've been looking for a fluency tool that is a better fit for our students' needs. So that's why we selected grade 1. And then the last bullet on this, in this section, is to review and revise pretty much all of our handbooks to reflect the latest policies and procedures that we have in place. It's something that we've been working on, and we just know we have to ensure that it's updated and reflects, like I said, our policies and procedures at this point. So that is all that I have for now, and I feel like I kind of rushed through it, but I will take any questions if that's how you want to do it, or I will go on to our end of school year events.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Ruby? Comments, questions, anything? I can't see the electronic hand, and Scott, you can see, Scott can see it.
He's muted, but I read his lips.
I can see it.
That's okay.
You did raise his hand.
No, this is great. My only question, and this is almost a little nitpicky, but I'm just curious. On 4.1 where it says encourage, is that the right word? Encourage strategic use, not like implement or actually, I mean, I'm just curious about the encourage, but I know it's nitpicky, but it's just one of those things I'm like, is that the...
You know, it is interesting when we're going through and trying to identify the right term for all of these goals, because yes, you know, with number 4, what we really want to do is be creative about how we are using our resources and our funding. So sure, I'm sure we could find a different word.
It was just more of a curiosity thing. I didn't even want to say anything, but then I'm like, oh, it's gonna nag me if I didn't ask. So I just wanted to ask. Just that's more for my own peace of mind type of thing. But
so sure, it's a focus area for us. You know, the goal is to be creative again, like I said, with how we're going to use our funding and how and the resources and the manner in which we do so. So even if you change the word from, you know, encourage to focus, or like you said, implement, but the goal is, you know we really have to be flexible, we have to be thoughtful, and we have to, you know, think outside the box.
Yeah, and I think everything else on here is really good, and it's great, and it's really reflective of what's going on right now. I've been on this part, I've been on the part where we've had to build these before, and this is I can appreciate the time and effort it takes to go through this. So this is great. Thank you.
Jason, was your comment more that it sounded like it was optional?
Not optional. It was just it was just nagging at me a little bit, and I just had to ask. That's all it was. It was just.
It's gonna nag at me now, Jason. I'm gonna find another word.
No, I'm sorry. It's just I didn't mean to start. I didn't mean to open it up. But I'm like, if I don't ask, then I'm going to send the email tomorrow anyways. I'm just going to ask now.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions, comments?
Stephanie did raise her hand.
Stephanie, okay. Unmute you. So there you go.
Thank you. Ruby, I just wanted to say thank you very much for this. I know how much work goes into it with you, with school council and your team. So this sounds amazing. I just wanted to say thank you. So I appreciate your efforts, and I just wanted you to know that they're not, I didn't want it to go unsaid. We all appreciate how hard you work. So thank you for presenting this.
Yes.
You're welcome. And I just want to say that thank you goes to that entire team that I mentioned, because I've been emailing them and connecting with them and saying, all right, we've got to do this. We've got to do this. So we've all been pushing together.
Terrific.
Okay. So
anyone else? All right. Moving on.
What's your end of the year plans?
So we've been focusing. The teachers have been doing just an amazing job. We've been talking about the importance of closure for a few weeks now, and I reached out to them a while ago to say, all right, so there's the typical things that we are able to do with the kids, the field trips, the fun things where we get together in large groups or small groups, and we watch the egg drop, and we watch just all of these different things that the kids are doing that they've been working on for the entire year, and the staff too, they need closure just as much as the kids do. So we try to be creative with things that we can do that are school-wide. So what I'm going to go over with you are school-wide, but know that the teachers are doing lots of classroom and team things with the kids, whether it's through video conferencing or with Google Classroom or projects that they're doing to help to put some of those end of year events in place.
Ruby, one that wasn't maybe school-wide, but was sent out today. I actually shared it with the committee in the background. Hopefully they can open the link. Is the yard show.
What was that?
the school-wide art show.
Yes.
Yeah, so I
Yes.
had the school committee background just because
Yes.
I want to highlight that I think the administrative team in both buildings have just worked really hard to have some end of the year celebrations and to recognize the kids even though we're not in school. And I wanted the community to be aware of that and talk about some of those things. Even though what Ruby and Micah is going to present really is probably just a piece of what's happening, not everything.
Yes, and you all will get the newsletter tomorrow. It will include the art show so that you'll have an opportunity to see that as well. When I put this together, we didn't quite have that. But anyway, I feel bad, but yes, you'll see it tomorrow.
I gave them a link to it too, Ruby. They have it on.
Oh, okay, thank you, sorry. So, I put the Kindness Week, we had worked on some of those activities with the kids where the kids are sending some pictures, a lot of pictures actually, to their teachers. And Kindness Week just is an opportunity for kids to write poems or talk about things that they know are kind and helpful for themselves or for others. And so those are things that we traditionally do at this time of year, so we wanted to keep that in place. The student belongings pickup, you'll look at that and you'll say, well, how is that a closure? And you know what, it absolutely is, because the kids were able to come with their parents today. We have had a staggered plan for 400 children today and 400 tomorrow to come with the parent to the school. The teachers worked really hard to gather all of their belongings and label them and put them nice and neat for the children and their parents when they came in today. So, received a lot of feedback from the parents of how important it is for their child to come in and get their things and say bye. So it's been another opportunity for them to have some level of closure. We know it's absolutely not the same, but that's one thing. Also, the Flag Day presentation. So at Carver Elementary for many years, Flag Day has just been such an important event. And so on Monday, the kids will receive, and the families will receive through the newsletter, a video that was put together by children, Mr. Chan, Ms. Kent. Several teachers have been working on that just to have an opportunity to reflect and to sing some songs and do some of the things that we typically do together virtually. Coyote Clap Up is our way of moving the kids up to the next grade. So we wanted to have a move up day this school year. Physically, we weren't able to do it. So the teachers and the staff have been working on short little video clip that is a poem or a quote or a special message to the kids to let them know you've done it, you've made it, and now you're going to the next grade. So the Coyote Clap Up is a video that will be released on that day through the newsletter again, just to congratulate and recognize the students. And then on June 18th, we're having a end of year parade, which essentially it's a drive through the school. We're inviting all of the parents to come to the school to drive through. We've staggered it so that pre-K and K will start at 9, and we're asking the parents to come a half hour ahead of time for all of the grades. So for pre-K and K, we're asking parents to come at 8:30 for a 9 o'clock drive through parade. They'll drive through the back of the school, and we have some surprises for the kids in the back of the school. And the teachers will be there all 6 feet apart and wearing masks. And we're asking the children to stay in their vehicle as they drive through. And the fire department will be on hand to lead the drive-through parade, and the police will be on hand as well. And then we'll do that with all of the grades, culminating with 5th grade. 5th grade, typically we do an end of year parade where they parade through the school, and we kind of clap them up and we recognize them as their last day. And so the drive-by parade will culminate with 5th grade at 12, and then a little special surprise for them. We have a gift bag to give to them.
Jason raised his hand, so I don't know if there's a specific question about the parade.
Okay.
You're gonna be sick of me. I'm sorry. No, for the drive-by, will all the teachers be there for each parade, or is it like the first grade teachers will only be there during the first grade time? And
So the way we've set it up is we've set it up so that the teachers are able to be there for the entire morning. It's basically all morning, if they would like to be, if they're able to be. And so I looked at the sign-up sheet today. I probably have so I have 135 staff. We have about 95 signed up.
That's awesome. Okay.
And so it's.
I just know. I know there've been parents who've asked about, you have the student in fourth and the student in kindergarten, and whether they have to go twice or whether they can get it all done in one go, and see their teachers all at the same time.
Right. So the message that you can continue to give them, and I will too, is that they can come to both, or that they can pick one.
Okay.
And my sense is, for the most part, is the teachers will be there for all of it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Then we have an end of year virtual assembly, which again is it's a video that we're going to send out to the students on the last day of school. And it will include just some end of year types of things that we do, which is celebrating the kids. And we also, a few of the teachers came up with the Coyote Cool Off Challenge, because we noticed, a couple weeks ago that a lot of the kids started to just kind of we started not to see them too much on our Zoom calls. And we felt like we needed to motivate them a little bit to finish off strong. So the Coyote Cool Off is a message from Mr. Allaire. We sent in a video telling the kids that they can do it, pull through, finish off, participate as much as they can, get their work done, turn it in, submit their work, and the teachers will do a cool off, which is basically a bucket of ice water over their head, and videotape it, put them all together, and send it to the kids. So they will see that video on the last day of school, the Coyote Cool Off video. It's actually quite funny. It's coming along nicely. And then report card, and so that's the last day of school. So the last day of remote learning on June 19th. And then report cards will go home on June 22nd. So just lots of things that are happening.
Questions?
Anybody have anything? I don't see any hands.
Jen raised her hand.
Oh, Jen raised her hand? Okay.
I had a parent ask me, and so if it's not appropriate to ask this here, then I can send you an email, but they wanted to know, normally the last, I think, 2 years on the end of year report card, the teacher assignment has been included for the following year, and there's been no mention on whether that would happen. And I don't even know if it's possible, because we don't know what classes are going to look like next year, but I didn't know if there's anything that we can.
Jen, it is going to be on their report card. We absolutely, that's a great question. I'll make sure to put it in the newsletter for parents for tomorrow, but we have been working on placement for the last several weeks. Teachers have been working really hard on that. We had some virtual meetings last Friday, and I just sent the teachers an email today to let them know we're almost wrapped up. We just like everyone to take a look at it and to weigh in. All of our allied arts staff were able to weigh in yesterday. So yes, teacher names for entering for all the students will be on the report card, and the teaming grades will have the team teachers on the report card.
I think that's great. That gives the kids something to look forward to too.
Yeah, so I was going to address this as part of reopening, but since we hit it now, just a general sense that both buildings are planning for next year as if we'd be back in school. And ultimately, there's going to be, the guidance is going to come out. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, and I'll talk about this with the reopening committee, and we're going to plan for that. But we're going to have, our starting point will be school's going to be normal next year. And so the middle high school is building a schedule, and actually had a scheduling meeting today. That schedule's pretty much completed or close to completed and ready to go for next year. The elementary school has done placement as they've always done, preparing to move forward, and then we'll make adjustments from there. So, parents at the end will have to know it's somewhat tentative, but yes, we're planning as if the school will be open next year.
Okay, anybody else have anything? All right, Scott, if there are no hands, we'll move on.
There are no hands. So,
Okay, Ruby.
So Mike, thank you, Ruby.
Ruby's done? Okay. Thank you, Ruby.
You're welcome.
Mike for the middle high school improvement plan and end of the year activities.
Hi, Mike.
Good evening, everyone. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'll try to go quickly through this. I do want to thank the committee that worked with me this year, the school council. I had the opportunity this year to establish a new group. We had 2 teachers, Jackie Perkins and Dylan Antel on our group, 2 parents, Nikki Simmons and Sue Vincent, and we had 2 students, Hayden Roach and Lauren Todd. So being new to the school council piece, it was just an opportunity to share new initiatives we're doing. Every time we rolled something out, we had an opportunity to speak on a monthly basis, and their insight and input throughout this whole thing. This process has been valuable. We didn't get a chance to meet too much since the closure, but we have a lot of information and input, and a lot of things we're going to go over tonight. We have definitely kind of reviewed and talked about and decided these are things we want to continue to pursue. I also want to thank Mrs. Cabral and Mr. Martin, our assistant principals, and then Meredith, who's worked on this with us in terms of some of the new programs and some of the professional development and planning for CT and so forth. So I'll go through each column fairly quickly. A lot of this stuff, for those of you that were on the board school committee last year, will look familiar, and some of the stuff we've actually presented at school committee at different points this year. So we will continue to implement our ALICE procedures and ALICE programs. We have a committee in place at school. On that committee is Leslie Ritz, Doug Fees, Amelia Cousins, Brendan Cully, myself, Mike Martin, Mrs. Cabral, and Officer Wall. This group meets frequently, I would say once a month actually, and we planned out from the beginning our ALICE protocols, and we got 2/3 of the way through. So we will continue to build up to these enhanced lockdowns and continue to fine tune our procedure and process for ALICE training. We are looking into what we've been calling the Crusada Hour, and we've done some conversations around the Power Hour and this sort of hour during the middle of the day to kind of get a break in the day, and it serves multiple purposes. It serves as a tiered accountability system, but also gives students some flexibility in their schedule. Having gone through the closure, and this is probably a really valuable piece to start to use next year in terms of balancing our schedules. Right before closure, we had planned a visit to Monomoy High School to see it in action, and then we had planned to pilot something possibly 4th term. So we put this back on there because we are still exploring and want to pilot first thing next year sometime. We started a PBIS check-in, check-out program. We've talked about this before, I think, at school committee. We want to expand this to more students and more teachers. It's a very powerful opportunity for students to check in the morning and check out. It's a 5-minute interaction, but the benefits are tremendous as students sort of tend to disengage, and then we can kind of get them back. So the check-in, check-out program, we want to expand. We've the special ed department with Meredith Cargill and Melissa Leary and Karen have put together this social emotional resource site that is available for parents and students and teachers. It's something that we use in the building and something we will continue to use. We have a safe and supportive schools action team as part of the grant that we had received, and we'll be in year 2 next year. And again, you guys have heard some of the stuff we've been doing with that group in terms of the Shadow a Student program that we ran, and a few other programs that we're looking to develop. promote the transition from Aspen by supporting and training. So, as you know, we're going to be transitioning from IPASS and Jupiter grades at the middle high school to Aspen. I think ultimately it's going to be a great platform for families and students and teachers. So we want to make sure that that transition is smooth and we provide as much information for all parties to be successful in that transition. As we go to engage the community, we're still working on a big focus of what our work this year was, developing a culture and climate, a positive culture and climate. And some of the things we want to continue to do is establish community-wide events. We had that winter program that we ran with during Christmas time in that area where we had that Crusader Day. We were planning a Crusader Day for the spring. And we're looking to develop a homework club. So there's a lot of stuff involved around community-wide engagement and supporting students both in and out of the classroom. We're going to continue our partnership with Carver Cares and the Caring Crusaders. And we're working to develop the implementation of a substance abuse program, which is through the Carver Cares, and also our partnership with the Bright program. We want to continue to expand our partnerships with local business. And one of the things that we're looking to do, again, something we mentioned last year, is to increase our connection with businesses in the area, continue to develop our internship program, and also look to enhance our convocation and scholarship opportunities for students through these partnerships. In terms of the Carver Middle High School parent-teacher organization, we've been building that all year. I think right before closure, we had built it up to, 10 members, and our goal was to have representation at every grade level. We've started to sort of establish fundraisers at every grade level, and this organization wants to have members at every grade level, or someone at every grade level, supporting the whatever the field trip or the program, or whatever each grade level wants to do. I'm going to put a plug in here for our new fundraiser. I sent out an email if you are a middle high school parent. We started a gift card fundraiser where proceeds of there's hundreds and hundreds of gift cards. Proceeds of them go right directly to the PTO and the middle high school. So it's called Shop with Script, and there's information in terms of becoming sort of logging in, and anytime you purchase something, we get a piece of that purchase. We're going to continue to promote the CTE Pathways program, and we've done some presentations on that. Right before closure, we were planning a promotional video and a parent presentation. We have put that on hold just because of the current situation and the budget and planning purposes, but we do have our promotional stuff ready to go and just working on a video at this point. So promoting that program is going to be key to not only the students understanding the courses we're offering, but also the community getting involved with us in terms of the partnerships we can form in internships and so forth. And then, our communication. I think communication is key. It's been key during this closure. And one of the things that I think that has helped us stay connected with our students is our weekly newsletters. I think, Mr. Martin has been spearheading this, but it takes the whole school to be able to submit this information. We've been able to do a lot of supportive videos for teachers, for the seniors. We've done some challenges through there. So just to continue the Carver Chronicles and the weekly newsletter to engage the community and let people know what's going on in our building. And under teaching and learning, I think professional development is extremely important in the teacher feedback piece. So anybody that's in education knows that you want your opportunities to work with your colleagues, and you want your opportunities to have valuable professional development that's relative to the work you're doing, and surveying our staff and connecting with them and giving them those opportunities is something that we will continue to do. Create a vision of the graduate. This is one that is still sort of in our radar. It's sort of a focus for us, but I think there's going to be some delays on this one in terms of where NEASC is, and they've suspended visits for obviously during this time. So we were scheduled for, I believe, 2022. So we'll have to get some feedback from them as to where we are. But one of the things that we will focus on to start is sort of our vision of the graduate, and looking at our core values and beliefs, which ties into all the things we're talking about in terms of planning and CTE and culture and climate and so forth. Again, just in terms of the enhancing teaching and learning, it's enhancing the CTE Pathways program, and starting to phase in the courses that we're bringing in. So it's, right now we've offered, I believe, 6 or 7 new courses in total. Our enrollment in those courses have been very good, but I think a lot of it is going to have to do with kids understanding these classes, understanding what CAD is, and understanding the robotics piece, and what do you do in graphic design. And as we introduce these classes, we're definitely seeing an interest. We introduced Intro to Videography and Video Productions in January, and the enrollment was high, and the students really enjoyed the class. So enhancing the Pathways program and developing this program is going to be key to the next year. The transition for students, I mean, we work directly with the elementary school as we transition 5th grade students up to 6th grade. And also as we transition the 8th grade to 9th grade. That vertical piece, that horizontal alignment of and collaboration is extremely important, and something that we will continue to work on, so that as students make these transitions, it's seamless. With this, obviously, there are concerns with what happened during the closure, and are students ready entering, for example, a student who's entering from 8th grade to 9th grade, a freshman, what are the concepts and content that they've missed? And we've been tracking this, and I think we've talked about this at the last school committee meeting, but tracking these power standards and this content that may not have been covered, and making sure that we're starting the next school year with review, and making sure we know where they are, and then building from there. We're always looking to integrate the technology and provide opportunities for teachers and students. We have an opportunity to, I believe we're getting some new clear touch screens, replacing the old LCD projectors in the science classrooms next year, which gives a whole new dimension to presentation, and being able to have an interactive board in your classroom is going to go a long way. So we're going to continue to provide these opportunities, and then make sure that there's right training for students and teachers. Providing opportunities to collaborate and revise curriculum on content areas. A lot of times this work gets done during department chair meetings, but we also, this year, we did put aside professional development days where we were strictly working with either vertically within your own discipline, or working, across disciplines to support each other, and look for some opportunities to make stronger connections. So that is a focus of ours, and it's something we'll continue to do. And then, like Ruby said, we are looking to pilot the MAP program, NWEA, and this is an opportunity for us to continue to track these students from grade 5 to grade 6 and 7 with progress in math and reading. So we work in concert with the elementary school. And then the last 3 involve, funding and leverage. And this is just, this has been on here before, but I think that we will continue to, and this is where Meredith definitely supports us here, is professional development funds to district support and funding sources. We're always looking for grants in different ways that we can participate in, either statewide opportunities, or bringing opportunities to our district through different organizations. We're going to continue to collaborate within the district, and ways in which we can support our career and ready pathways opportunities. And then finally, again, looking for opportunities within the pathways sort of programs, whether it be a state aid or a Project Lead the Way opportunity, we will continue to apply for grants that are applicable as we progress through our Pathways program. So that's
Any questions,
what I get.
Mike? Jason raised his hand.
Yes, Jason.
Hey, Mike. Awesome. This is good. This is awesome too. Just two quick questions. Do you guys do any other PBIS stuff other than the check-in, check-out?
Yeah, no, we have Mrs. Cabral runs our PBIS program, and we have a series of, one of the things as part of our PBS is she does a morning announcement, which she's been sending out entirely through the closure. There is some words of wisdom that go with it, and it's some motivational stuff that goes with the students. Plus, we do a quarterly contest. We send out, the quarterly contest is kind of like a Caught Being Good, where students get Crusader Cash. They also have raffles where they can put their ticket into one of the containers, and we pull out names. So there's a bunch of different PBIS initiatives within the building where students are rewarded for positive behavior and just being good citizens.
Great. And the other one, I don't know if this would go to you or Meredith or Scott, I don't know who, but were any of the grants that were previously approved, like I think you said we already had a Project Lead the Way approved before, right?
Yes, was
anything revised or anything because of the shutdown or closure? Has anything been changed grant-wise?
As of right now, no. So all the funding that we've received is still in place.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we're looking to, and Meredith can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're in the process of applying for the innovation grant through the Department of Ed, which is a pretty extensive grant, but we're gonna go after that to support some of the Pathways curriculum and the funding and equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been a part of the innovation grant in the past, so I know it's extensive, but it's worth it. So it's good.
Yeah, so we're going to start that process, and hopefully we get to the second round.
Awesome. All right, great. Thank you.
Stephanie raised her hand.
Hi, Stephanie.
Sorry, my mouse is being very finicky. I just wanted to say thank you for all of this information. I have seen from afar a lot of the programs that have been introduced this school year, and I've heard wonderful feedback. And I love seeing the newsletter, and parents and students are appreciative, and I think enjoying a lot of the things that you've implemented. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I wanted to say thank you to you, and thank you for your team that put this together and for presenting it to us. So,
you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Hold on. Michael, I had a question about the Alice procedures going on. Have you had talks with just the SRO, or the police chief has he been involved at all, or is there anything new coming down the pipeline with that, training wise?
Yeah, so we have, when we meet with the interior team here, right, that I mentioned earlier, but we also invite the police chief, the fire chief, and other stakeholders. Mr. Neef's been the other stakeholders, and we've done a series of drills that involve them. So we did an enhanced lockdown drill in October. We did a blocked egress fire drill. We've done a couple other drills and presentations that involves our local law enforcement and our fire department. Many times when we have these meetings, deputy fire chief is with us. So Officer Ritz is with us. So we're members of the police force and fire department with us on a regular basis in these meetings.
Okay, and what about how are we doing still on the emergency buckets that we bought a couple years ago? Do all the classrooms still have them, and do all the classrooms still have? I believe we bought kick jams or door jam.
Yes, yeah. All of our classrooms have the geez, I'm drawing a blank on what they're called now. The orange bolo sticks.
Well,
The
they're
bolo sticks.
Bolo
They're
sticks
called
and emergency buckets.
Bolo stick, yeah.
bolo sticks. And every classroom and every actually all of offices and classrooms and open spaces like the cafeteria, the kitchen, they all have the safety buckets. I bet you there's no more Purell in them anymore. But I think people might have used those, but everything else, yeah, we have the buckets are in and the bolo sticks are in place. And these enhanced lockdowns and these lockdowns in which students have to make choices with their teachers and we make announcements. We've done lockdowns where we have officers in yellow and the kids see somebody standing in the hallway, they go the other direction. These are all drills that we do in concert with the fire department, in concert with the police department. So these things are all in place. And I think that, in terms of implementation, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. I think that had we gotten to the end of this year without the closure, I can't project for you. I can't show you what we had on a schedule, but we had, it all leads up to sort of an opportunity for you to go through a full drill and go to your safety site and so forth. So we were heading in that direction. But we weren't able to complete that. So that's our next step. And we'll just pick up where we left off next year. I mean, one of the things that Scott had mentioned earlier was, a lot of people have asked me this question over the last several weeks, what's the fall going to look like? And my answer is, I don't know, but all I can do and all we can do is plan for what we're used to and then go from there. So like Scott said, the schedule's just about done. All the stuff on this list that we're talking about today are things we want to continue to pursue and develop and build. And we'll definitely probably have to make some edits along the way, but we're building it as if we're going to go back and we're ready to go.
Well, that's good. I mean, we'll see what comes down from the state for what's mandatory or not, and see what decisions we can make at that point. The other thing is, I'm a big fan of communications, and I spoke to Scott about this. I'm not sure if he spoke to you or Ruby about this yet, but since I have you both here, I'll mention it. When you send something out to the parents, to the community, or to the staff and staff-wide, or any of those emails, can you put all of our committee members on those emails so we are all informed or in the loop?
Sure.
Okay.
I have no problem. My earbuds are dying. I have no problem with that.
Okay, just so we're informed as well, because some of us get some of us get others. But if both schools could put all of our members on that, that would go a long way for us, because we want to be informed in what's going on, and there's nothing worse when a parent asks you a question and said, "Well, gee, I haven't seen that yet." You know what I mean? And it's just because you didn't get the community-wide or the staff-wide email.
Sure. No problem.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ruby.
You're welcome.
All right.
So I'll just go quickly in terms of a couple things we're doing at the end of the year. Our focus the last probably month has been on the seniors. We've done a lot of senior activities to support them. And I think that the staff has been great with that, and the students have, it's a tough situation for them. So our focus has been on them. We've done a lot of great things to celebrate those seniors. In terms of the things we're going to be doing the last week of school, we traditionally have done our Crusader Pride the last week of school. So we decided that we were going to do our Crusader Pride virtual presentation, and it would be pre-recorded, and with the help of Area 58, we are going to be putting that on TV on Thursday, June 18th at 7 p.m. We put together an awards presentation with some sort of honor. At the end, we're honoring the 8th grade and celebrating them with a couple of extra special things. In terms of the high school, we typically this time of year do the high school academic awards. And again, with the help of Area 58, I almost got through without saying CCAT. With the help of Area 58, we're going to be doing the academic award, same thing, pre-recorded. I want to thank the faculty and staff, administration, department chairs for putting this together. It's a pretty monumental task to get everybody sort of on a camera in a Zoom platform and then record it and then kind of piece it all together. So the high school academic awards are going to be on Area 58 on June 17th, Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Great.
And then we're going to put them in the weekly newsletter, and you can watch them anytime. But so those are a couple of things we're doing. There's also been a couple of, as Ruby had mentioned, there are teams and other clubs and stuff doing their own ceremonies and presentations. The Best Buddies had an award ceremony that they did. The athletics have honored their seniors the other day. Band and chorus is doing sort of a drive-by celebration sort of banquet. So, all these groups are doing their own thing, and then we're sort of culminating everything at the end with these award ceremonies.
I imagine the award ceremonies will be on Area 58's YouTube channel?
Yes. Okay. Yep. And then we're going to put them in Carver Chronicles for links, and we'll send them out. So, there's a lot there. So these are probably 45-minute to an hour presentations. So great. Looking forward to those, and the kids can watch them multiple times and so forth.
Yeah. And the reason I put this on the agenda is I just wanted, again, and I know I already said this, but I think the teachers, the administrators, everybody, the staff, people have just worked really hard to try to maintain some of the normalcy that we have for some of these end of the year events. And it's hard, it's always hard to put them together in person, but it's also hard to put them together virtually, absolutely. And people have dedicated a lot of time to put these events together. I just wanted the committee and the community to know that those things were happening.
Well, I definitely appreciate all your efforts, and I'm sure the community does as well. And it's just an odd year, but I'm glad the staff, all of you and the staff are doing everything you can to make it as normal as possible for the kids.
Yeah, thank you. And then I know that there's another line item here about graduation, so I'm not going to get into great detail about graduation. I'll let Scott talk a little bit about it. But there are some things planned for the seniors, later in July into August.
Okay. Well, moving on. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Mike?
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. All right, so we're moving on to reopening committee.
Okay, so I'm in the process of establishing a reopening committee to plan for the reopening of school in the fall. And there's going to be like a larger committee that's going to have community stakeholders. I'm going to seek some parents to be on the larger committee, and then we're going to establish 4 subcommittees. And the chairs of the subcommittees will also be on the larger committee. In your background, I gave you the kind of list of right now who tentatively is going to be on each of these committees. As we thought about it, we said there's going to be so many complexities about looking at the return to school that we didn't feel like one committee could cover every topic. And the reality is that just one committee alone, it would be tough on people because you might start having very specific conversations about transportation that doesn't necessarily apply to other groups. So we just tried to say what makes sense to how we can approach this. So what we've done, what I'm going to do, is I'd like to establish kind of 4 subcommittees that would report back to the larger committee with the goal of developing a reopening plan that eventually would go to the school committee for your review and approval before it went out to the community. So the 4 subcommittees would be teaching and learning, student support services, facilities and operations, and scheduling. Now, we haven't had any of the committees meet yet. I've reached out to different aspects of the school community to get membership. So we have teachers signed up for some of these committees, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, all of our different groups within the school are represented. I've also reached out to the health agent in town, the police department, the fire department. They're going to have representatives on the larger opening committee. And obviously, the health agent and the Board of Health is a big piece of this in terms of looking at how we're going to respond to the guidance that comes out. And I'm going to ask tonight, I think we should have 2 school committee members serve on the larger reopening committee. So we'll be looking for the committee to nominate 2 people to serve on that committee. Stephanie, I saw your hand. Well, Stephanie, raise your hand. I'll take a question first before I kind of give you some more background.
My apologies. I was just raising my hand because I wanted to volunteer to be on the subcommittee.
Okay, so we'll get to that point.
Is that later?
Yeah.
No problem.
So, DESE is saying that they're going to release their guidance the week of June 15th. Honestly, I think there's a good chance we may not see that guidance till the week of June 22nd. And I don't think it makes sense for the committees to start meeting before the guidance comes out, because we'd having, in theory, mythical conversations about what the guidance might say. When the guidance is coming out in a week or 2, we should probably wait until that comes out. Very interestingly enough, there's been a lot of conversation this week based on the summer school guidance. And I know there's been a lot on social media. I know that there was an article both in the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald. Basically, people have been extrapolating what's in the summer school guidance and saying that's what the fall guidance is going to be. And interestingly enough, and I think there's a lot of things that's in the summer school guidance that may end up in the fall guidance. But interestingly enough, on yesterday, this commissioner in the morning actually sent out a email to superintendents only and basically said, do not use the summer school guidance to begin planning for the fall. And he said, I know there's been a lot of discussion in social media about the summer school guidance. The fall guidance may look different because the situation in September may be different than what the situation is in July. And so it was very interesting. They said this very clear statement of, don't worry about the summer school guidance for summer, and then wait for the fall guidance before you start doing anything else. Or responding to people's questions, because I've already had some parent questions about the summer school guidance, but the questions are about the fall. They're not about summer school. They're about what? And so I've been saying giving people the same message of, we don't have the fall guidance yet. We'll wait to see it comes out. So when that guidance does come out, I'll convene the larger committee first, probably just to get together one time, and then we'll break off into the subcommittees. So the administrative team will review the guidance, then we'll have a committee meeting, review the guidance, and then start to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Now, the commissioner has stated, I don't know what this means, the commissioner has stated that 80 to 85% of the guidance is going to be mandated. It's not going to be optional. And the DESE has basically said that the remote learning guidance for the spring really gave a lot of options to local school districts on how they applied that guidance. He's kind of given the early message that there'll be less choice because they want a more consistent experience for students across the Commonwealth. And to ensure that, they're going to have to put some mandates in place. I'm not here to make any projections of what those mandates are going to be because I have no idea. But we'll see when the guidance comes out in a week or 2. So really, I just wanted you to know what the plan was in terms of reopening. Someone asked me today, do you think the guidance will change? And my answer to that question is yes. So I think that this is going to be the initial guidance, and then by August there might be some changes based on where we stand. So that's the general overview of my plan to approach opening for next year. I'll give you an update in July when we meet, and then obviously we'll meet as many times as we need to in terms of appropriately planning for the reopening of school in the fall. So if anybody has any questions about the overview, or we could start taking motions for 2 school committee members to be representatives on the reopening committee.
I have a question.
Sure.
These meetings, are these going to be virtual meetings or like Zoom meetings? Are they going to be in-person meetings? And what time do you think they'll happen?
Most likely, I think that the meetings will happen during the day. Okay. I do think they'll be virtual to start, but then I also think, depending on what the guidance says, we might need to start transitioning. Obviously, we're doing a little bit of transitioning. We're going to be doing some summer school face-to-face. I think eventually, if we're going to be making if the guidance is going to say return to school in the fall and kids are going to be coming back into the building, maybe towards the end of the summer, the group needs to meet. Then we'll start. My thought is we'll start virtually and then progress from there. Generally, my thought process would be the meetings would be during the day, but really I would defer to the committee members So, if I got, if we bring a whole committee together and they say, yeah, 6 o'clock's great for us at night, then I'm open to that. But my general thought is, with the amount of staff being on these committees, and all the staff are volunteering their time, going, obviously realizing these committees are going to meet through the summer, that most likely would be during the day.
I have one other question before we move on to motions or other questions from the committee. Did you happen to speak to James at all in any conversations about this? Do you think he has any interest in participating?
I do not know if James has any interest in participating.
Okay. Any other questions for Scott on this from anybody? Okay. Would you like to go into motions for 2 members of this? Or should we wait for James or?
Jason, it looks like Jen raised her hand. It looks like Jason's got a question.
Okay.
So
All right, so
Jen,
You can go first.
No,
Okay.
you had your hand raised. I was just going to talk out, so you got it.
Oh, I was just going to echo Stephanie's sentiments that I would be really interested in serving on this committee.
Okay.
I was actually going to say the same thing, which is going to make it weird making a vote here. That's where I was going to go.
and that's the hard part. But ultimately, and I would love to have 3 members be on the committee, but the reality is once you have 3 members on a committee,
It's a meeting. It's a public meeting.
it then becomes a school committee meeting.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Every meeting of the group would have to be a school committee meeting.
Yep. And that's not.
All right.
That's not
Right, it's not the best setup.
And when are you looking to start these meetings, Scott?
Honestly, as soon as the guidance comes out. So I would hope that if the guidance, the commissioner's saying next week, the 15th, I think it might be the 22nd. So I think I'd like to have the first group get together the week of the 22nd, have the first meeting.
Okay, so we can't wait for the
I
next
don't think it'd be
meeting.
a good idea to wait till July.
Right. Okay. So we have 3 members interested. It's going to be.
No, I'll reline. It's fine. I move to appoint Jen Pratt and Stephanie Clarity to the reopening committee.
Jason, I was going to have a arm wrestling, playoff here.
I would have lost to every one of you. I have no upper body.
All right. Well,
I think he was actually rock, paper, scissors, shoot. But
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, Jason made a motion. I guess I'll have to second it.
No, they can second it. They can vote for
Can they
them.
second
You're
it?
not allowed to second it. You're the
Oh,
chair.
I'm not allowed. Oh, that's right. The chairman can't.
One of them has to.
I'll second.
Okay. So do roll call vote. Jason?
I guess so.
Okay. Jen?
You're a good man, Jason. Aye.
Okay. Stephanie?
Thank you, Jason. Aye.
Okay, I am also an aye. So Jen and Stephanie are our 2 representatives to the reopening committee.
then obviously, I know this is going to be a topic that the entire Carver community is going to be interested in, but certainly all the members of the school committee will be interested in.
Mhm.
To make sure that everybody's getting regular updates on what's being discussed at the committee meetings. And then obviously the representatives, you can certainly reach out to the members of the committee to get their input for meetings.
And Scott, what about who's going to be taking? Are there going to be minutes taken? Are these going to be? Well, it's on Zoom.
No, they're not necessarily formal committee meetings in the sense of where it's votes and motions. But yes, we will take minutes. There'll be notes and minutes taken of every meeting.
No, I'm just saying for recording purposes to report back to the full committee.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we got that down. The next is class of 2020 graduation.
So as Mike mentioned, we've gotten the go to have a live graduation. So the Department of Public Health and the Massachusetts Department of Education has released guidance that allows for in-person graduations after July 19th. So we are planning on holding a in-person graduation on the morning of August 1st. I attached the guidance in here. My intention isn't to go through all the guidance, but I'll give some general overviews. Number 1, your plan has to be approved by the health agent or the Board of Health. I met with the health agent last week. I gave him an overview of our plan, and he was supportive of it. The guidance does say that those people who are attending must wear face masks during the ceremony. So the graduates, all those in attendance, speakers can take their masks off. We have to maintain social distancing. We're going to allow, the guidance calls to allow immediate family members only to attend, and they recommend that no children under 5, no elderly members of the family, or no members of the family with underlying health conditions attend the event. So we'll send that communication out to parents. We're going to allow students to have 4 members of their family attend. So we have about 100 graduates, and if they each brought 4 people, we'd have about 500 people plus staff. So it'd be a little, maybe 530 people would be attending the event on the high school football field. It is going to be, for social distancing, all the graduates will be spaced 6 feet apart. And then the families, the guidance says families can sit together, but have to be socially distanced from other families. So we're actually going to lay out the chairs on the football field in groups of 4, and then put 6 feet in between all the groups of 4. The guidance calls for no handshakes, no fist bumps, no elbows, no hugs. So we will call students up to a stage. The speakers will be on the stage. Maybe Ms. Cottarelli, as the chair of the school committee, will be on the stage. And the students will come up across the stage and take their diploma from a table. We have a little bit of a visual. So we've laid this out on the football field to make sure it's going to fit. So this area up to the top is actually where the press box is. We're working with Area 58, who is going to broadcast the event live. So we're, live outside is a little more difficult. We're about 95% sure we're going to have all the capabilities we need to have in place to go live. So we're still trying to fine tune a couple details on that. But we're feeling really positive they'll be able to be a live event. Certainly they'll be able to tape it and rebroadcast on Area 58, but we really want it to be live. And so they'll be in the press box. There'll be a stage down here. The staff will be on the side of the stage, socially distanced 6 feet apart. A couple members of the, probably myself, Mike Martin, and Andy would be physically on the stage. These are the graduates, 6 feet apart, and then these are the groups of 4. This was done through a CAD drawing. It's the realistic size of the field, so we can fit the 400 chairs. We can have it socially distanced apart between these yard lines, and that's kind of the layout that we're going to try to follow for the graduation ceremony. The other big thing that they asked for is that there be no events prior or after graduation at the school. So we're going to say that we're going to ask parents to come to graduation and go home afterwards. Typically after one of our graduations, for a half hour in the parking lot, everyone kind of gets together and all the friends take pictures, all the families take pictures. A lot of students and families want to take pictures with teachers and members of the staff. So we're going to, in essence, say, we're not encouraging that. We don't want you to do that. Ultimately, I don't know how much we're going to police people on that. Ultimately, maybe the staff, I'm going to have to ask the staff to not be available, because if that's the position we're going to take, so the staff to leave after the event. Because that's clearly the recommendation of no pre or post gatherings or events. But we're excited about the opportunity to have an in-person graduation. Different school districts have approached this in different ways. We decided to wait a little bit and plan on August 1st and see if it would be able to work out. And we're happy to get to go ahead and do the guidance to do that. And one of the things we're thinking about for that week is, Mike has tentatively planned a social event on the Thursday night, I believe. Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that if you're still here. I think it's the Thursday, the 30th of July at Southers Marsh, which would just be an event for the graduating seniors.
It's Wednesday.
Sorry, Wednesday the 29th?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's a reality piece of that may not be able to happen, but we've booked the hall, we've communicated with them, and if that's an event that could happen, that would be for the students only the students.
My pen's almost dead.
Well, you're almost out of what?
Yeah.
An hour?
Yeah.
Well, 1 second, I'm going to mute everybody because we got some. Sorry about that. We've tentatively put that date out there. I don't know how realistic that event is. That would be for the graduates only, not family, not a celebration. It would just be an opportunity for them to get together one last time. And then we're also considering the possibility of doing a live convocation event. We're still in the planning process of that. I think Mike's actually going to do a survey of the students and their families to see would they prefer a live convocation event, which I talked to the Board of Health about doing that the night before graduation. So if we could do convocation, we would actually do it on the Friday night and then do graduation in the morning. It'd be a little bit of a repeat event. But we want to actually get some feedback from families on that, whether they want to do that and get where they are, or we consider doing something virtually. So that's kind of our summary of where we are for graduation for our seniors. Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything into that, and then I'll take any questions. Definitely.
No, I'm good.
I had a question, Scott. How did you come up with the number 4 for the families?
We just talked about it with I talked about it with the health agent. What we thought was a realistic number. Honestly, 4 was kind of our high end. So we were going, there was a little bit of discussion originally, and maybe only 2. And then, we just felt like, I don't know if I have a great explanation of how we got to 4. Besides him and I sat down and talked about it. I talked with Mike. I talked with the senior class advisors. They thought 4 was a good number to be able to bring for families. Obviously, historically, the benefit of an outside graduation is you can bring who you want, and we could line the field, and we could have people in the bleachers. But that's just not, that's not what we can do right now. So we just felt like 4 was a good number.
Maybe I missed it, but do families, will they have to contact you with like an RSVP?
Yes. So one of the things in the guidance is, and I think this is really for a tracing idea, is that they have to actually reserve their 4 tickets and tell us the 4 people who are attending. Okay. So they have to notify us who they are. They don't have to tell us the relationship per se. We're going to allow parents and families to use their own judgment of what's an immediate family member and who they want to attend graduation. But we do have to know who the people are. And I think that the purpose of that part of the guidance is that if there was someone who was exposed, that in essence we could give the Board of Health, here's the 525 people who attended this event. Here's their names. Yes, they will have to reserve tickets with names.
And if you get a lot of feedback of people asking about increasing the amount of guests to like 6, is that something? Is that way out of the?
We're going to say no.
Okay.
So I'll answer that question right now. 4 has been what's been approved by the Board of Health. The goal is to minimize the number. Historically, on our inside graduation, everyone gets 5 tickets, quite honestly.
Oh, I got you.
Sometimes there's opportunities to get more because some families don't use all 5 tickets. And depending on the size of the graduating class, some years we have more tickets available. And what we do is we set it at 5, and then people can get extra tickets if they need them. But we're going to be strong and set it at 4. My conversations and Mike's, I think Mike's had more direct conversations, but I've been involved in some of them. I think parents and students are just going to be really happy that we're having the opportunity to have a graduation.
Oh, no, I agree.
I don't think we're going to get a lot of pushback on the number of 4.
And the other thing people have to realize,
strong with that number.
Right. The other thing people have to realize too is that if you have 4 tickets, you have 4 spots, and 2 people aren't going, you can't give your two seats away to somebody else because the family has to stay together.
Correct.
Right.
That is correct.
And is there a rain date?
The rain date is the next day. So
the next day.
Saturday the 1st. So we're actually renting everything. We're renting all the chairs. We're renting the stage. We're renting the sound system. The rental company is dropping off, I believe, on Thursday and picking up Monday. So we could have a convocation on Friday evening, graduation ceremony on Saturday, which is definitely going to happen. The convocation is still going to have some question on that, and rain date of Sunday.
Okay, well, just one more thing before we move on. Just a little background. A member of our community has, before any of this had happened, before any planning had happened, a member of our community, Brian Griffin, had contacted me, and he does DJ work and things like that, and some entertainment work, and he has a lot of equipment. And he had told me that he had the ability to broadcast the graduation over an FM radio frequency if they had to do if we couldn't do an in-person thing out in the field, or, you know, people could, there was talk about having like car attendees in their cars. And I ran that by Mr. Neef, and that was before this came out. So we declined, we're going to decline that offer. I haven't contacted him again, but we don't need his services right now.
We do not.
Okay, I wanted to make the committee aware of that. It was very generous of him to offer that because he felt bad that the kids maybe didn't have anything. And this was before this plan, like I said, so I will definitely let him know, but I wanted to let the committee and the community know that Brian was nice enough to reach out to us and offer that. Anyway.
Can I just add something? We are looking for, I've reached out to a couple of companies about the PA system. The problem with the PA system in the stadium is it has a delay. So if you're on the field and you have your microphone, there's a delay, which makes it difficult to do speeches and read names. So we will use the PA system for the music and so forth up in the press box, but we are looking for someone to do a PA setup on the field. So I can want to reach out to him and ask him if he wants to contact me and has the ability to project ground level.
How many speakers do you think you need? I'm not sure how much he has, but I know he has some of those big tower speakers for gigs.
I think I would defer it to Area 58 because we'd have to have the ability to obviously hear it and then tie into their feed if we go live. So if you want to mention it and he wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to have that conversation with him.
You might want to direct them to Mike and see if he can support us in that way, which is a little bit the FM feed, but he might. What I'll do is I'll reach out to him, and what I'll do is I'll give him your number, Scott, or I don't know, Mike. I don't have your cell number, but I can give it to Scott, and you guys can have a direct conversation with him if you want. And I can just tell him that you call.
Yeah, we can try. I mean, if he can help, he can help. If not, I'll keep looking. But that's definitely, if he can help, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
Stephanie raised her hand. Still, sorry, but Stephanie's still muted.
My apologies, my mouse. So I apologize if I missed it. So there's a possibility that it would be broadcast on Area 58 for those who are not able to attend?
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is that we're going to go live. Like I said, we're at 90. I used the number 95% sure we're going to be able to do that. We're just some technical things on that. We're pretty confident that we're going to be able to do a live broadcast.
Okay, I missed it because I know a couple of people that will have to pick and choose who their 4 attendees will be.
Yep.
So I just wanted to ask so I could give feedback because I know that people are eager or anxiously awaiting to hear what graduation is going to look like. So thank you for all of the efforts that you have put in for planning this. I've spoken with some seniors recently, and they're absolutely just thrilled of the potential of having a graduation at the school. So thank you for waiting to see what you guys could put together.
And in terms of, so we've told parents that there's going to be an August 1st graduation. They haven't gotten the details of it yet. We're in the process of putting together a letter that's going to go up to the parents hopefully next week, and as well as some overall guidance in terms of what the expectations are for that day. And we hope to get that out to everyone next week.
All right, anybody else maybe have any comments or questions on graduation? Okay. Moving on, Scott.
Hey, we have a couple more things. We're getting there. It's a long one tonight. Recreation Committee reappointments. So historically in June, the school committee has appointed 2 members to the Recreation Committee. It's part of our roles and responsibilities. So our 2 current representatives are Mary Ross and Carl Miller. They've both expressed interest in staying on as members of the Recreation Committee. Mary's been on the committee for many years. Carl served the last 2. So I'd be looking for a motion and a vote to reappoint Carl and Mary to the Recreation Committee. And I see that Jason raised his hand.
I move to appoint Mary Ross and Carl Miller to the Recreation Committee.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment, discussion on these 2 nominations?
I just want to say thank you to both of them for stepping up to serve on the rec committee.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other, this is a roll call vote. Stephanie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
And I'm also aye, so it's unanimous. They're reappointed.
Okay. School committee meetings for next year. Don't necessarily need to vote on this, but we're building the calendar. This year, for the first time, we did Thursday meetings, the second Thursday. We used to do Mondays. So I've heard some people say they like the Mondays better. So it doesn't matter to me. Thursdays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. You guys can pick the day you want to meet. I did give you 2 calendars in the background for Thursdays and Mondays. Jason.
This year, I feel like we ran into a bunch of conflicts with different school events on Thursdays. Things like there was a concert one night, there was conferences one night, and we just kind of kept butting heads on Thursdays. So I am all for Mondays. That's my opinion. I mean, of course, I'll do Thursdays, but that's just my opinion on that.
Anybody
we did
else?
Mondays for years and years. That was always the second Monday. Jen.
So I noticed on your thing you said that sometimes holidays and things can be issues on Mondays. Are we only limited to these 2 days choices, or?
I think historically, just almost for the community, we try to establish a routine. Meaning Monday, meetings are the second Monday. So if you're in the school committee, if you're interested in what's happening in the school committee, the meeting's the second Monday of the month.
Right. It's like the selectmen are usually on Tuesdays.
Right. The only conflict this year with a holiday is October. So when we actually look at, and then August, we could change, and it might even make sense in August. Historically, when we did Mondays or Thursday, actually, historically in August, we've met the 3rd week of the month. I don't even know why, quite honestly, I don't know where that comes from. So the Monday on here, August 17th, is the 3rd Monday, but we could meet the 2nd Monday. And then the only one is the October is Columbus Day, so we go to the 3rd Monday, which is the 19th.
Stephanie, do you have any input in this?
Nope. Either day is fine with me.
All right, I also want to ask Brad and Meredith and Karen if they have any issues with any certain day, because they're always at our meetings.
Thank you. I'm fine with whatever the committee decides.
Okay.
Brad?
I prefer Thursdays personally. Monday makes for a long week, but I'll make whatever you guys want work.
That was the original reason for Andrew Salavota, who brought this up to the committee. He said he felt like having a meeting till 10 o'clock or 10:30 on a Monday night made for a long week. Not that we always meet till 10 or 10:30, but tonight is an example where we're going to meet till 10:30.
I wouldn't mind either day, but I prefer Thursdays myself better, because if you don't go into a long meeting, you have one day to, if you're working, then it's the weekend. So
I'm just losing all around tonight, aren't I?
I didn't say it had to be Thursday. I'm just saying that's my input.
Oh man, all right.
It's nothing personal, Jason. Honestly,
no,
it's nothing personal.
Just by Thursdays, Thursdays, I'm wiped from the week, and I'm useless on Friday. It's just, especially, anyways, it's fine. Thursdays are good.
When we looked at Thursdays, there was only one Thursday there was a conflict in March. And as of right now.
As of right now, yeah.
I think what happened last year, probably my fault or our fault, is I don't know how well. I think people when they plan their events like concerts and those things, they were not thinking about school committee meeting on Thursday night, because the school committee never met on Thursday nights.
Right.
So I think that they just scheduled and didn't. So we might have to, if we stay on Thursdays, we might have to do a better. Right now, there's only that one conflict the week of March 18th.
Now, what about?
We just have to really communicate to people, hey, the committee meets on the second Thursday.
Does anybody use room 1 at Town Hall on Wednesday nights, Scott?
I'm not that I'm aware of. We'd have to ask. I don't know.
I know sometimes the Conservation Committee, I think they might use it. I don't know. Whatever the committee wants to do. I like Thursdays, but that's just me. But whatever's easier for everybody. Want to take a vote on Monday and Thursday, or do you want to just give me your preferences? Give me your number one.
Monday.
Jason's Monday.
We got a Monday.
Jen?
I feel bad for Jason, but I think I'd rather Thursdays too.
Don't feel bad for Jason.
I do though.
Oh, don't feel bad for me. Don't worry. It all comes back around in the end. It's fine. I got
I'm
you.
joking.
Yeah, I shouldn't feel bad. He did vote me secretary.
Exactly.
Right. See?
That was a committee
Exactly.
decision, and it was what exactly what happened to me a year ago. So I have no bad.
All the new members get it. Right. Stephanie, what do you think?
I prefer Thursday too. Mondays are difficult enough, but
Okay, and I go with Thursday too. I'm sorry, Jason.
Looks like we're staying with Thursdays. So then my question would be, if we want to stay with Thursdays, I think we should stay with Thursdays for August too. So on here we have August 17th, but I'm going to suggest we meet the second Thursday, August 13th, especially with what is coming up for the guidance. And then you want to do the second Thursday in July, which is July 9th.
It's fine.
fine with me.
Thursdays.
And Jason, you said about parent-teacher conferences that we were falling on Thursdays?
That's what happened last year. So there was one where the high school had conferences, and we ended up switching the week in March. And then there were other things with concerts and things like that. So it was like a 3-month in a row thing where we kind of fell on something else was happening in the district. You know what I mean? Like I missed out on a concert, one of my kids' concerts that happened on Thursday. So it was like,
well, maybe Scott in the principals can.
If I can defer to Gina for a second. Gina, the one on the 18th is because of a conference day, right?
Sorry, that's correct.
So we're on. So right now we already have conferences scheduled. The conflict for conferences, there is a parent-teacher conference
on the 11th,
March 11th. So we move that. That's why the March date is on the 18th. But then we'd have to, like I said, I don't think we did a good job communicating to the staff. School committee meets on the second Thursday of the month. So we would have to become our responsibility to tell the staff when they start playing their concerts and those events to stay away from the second Thursday.
Okay then. Well, Thursdays it is then.
And then we'll make August. The August meeting will be the 13th. I think this is the date I just said. And then July we'll do. July, I'm a little nervous that the 9th is too early, but it's fine.
Why don't you make it the 3rd then?
I don't know if we'll know anything different on the 16th, quite honestly, in terms of budget or any of that sort of stuff. So we'll just stay with the 9th. So we'll be consistent, second Thursday.
Okay. All right, so moving on to, is that, anybody else have anything?
Budget transfers, Brad?
Yeah, budget transfers.
Scott, can you open that link up?
Yep. Sorry.
I'll say if it's after 10 o'clock, I had to go to bed past my bedtime here.
I'll try to make this as big as I can and have people be able to see it.
All right, so you can go to transfer, Scott, the tab. So just to give you guys a quick background update, I apologize. I didn't upload this till today. I was waiting for the payroll to post, which didn't happen until this afternoon. So it's our big last lump sum payroll for most of our instructional staff. Where we are right now is in a very good spot in terms of FY20 spending. We've been able to, like I said before, put all of our money that we were originally going to offset in school choice back into our school choice revolving account. So that certainly helps any shortfalls we have in future years. Again, that is one-time money. That's not reoccurring money, but it is nice to know that we do have some money to fill gaps. So that is the line you'll see on line 4, the $226,000. That is a piece of what we were originally going to plan to offset with school choice money. That's now fully funded from savings we've had in the operational budget. If you scroll down, you'll see on line 14 and 15 are just our sublines. Again, just general savings from not having to call subs in. Every district has seen that, so that's part of what we're going to piece into that $226,000. On line 16 and 17, what we did was, because we had operational money to cover paraprofessional lines, we actually took them out of the grant. So part of our 240 grant, which is our SPED IDA grant, it's actually, I think it's titled 305. It's one or the other. It's either 305 or 240, but that's kind of irrelevant. Those two accounts we will actually save money on for grants. So again, that is money that we can reallocate towards next year's budget shortfall that we have. Same thing on line 18. That's just savings in our ESP sub coverage. If you scroll down, Scott, most of these are just small cleaning up after the last payroll. Nothing major. Keep going. Keep going. All right, that is on line, back up. Line 40, that's our homeless transportation. Obviously, with shutting down school, that saved us money. As you guys know, if someone is either declared homeless, they move into your district, or they move from your district, from their town. If the parent chooses the option to keep them at your district or transfer them from your district to the sending district, we have to pay 50% of that transportation cost. So that number fluctuates every year, but because we shut down for COVID, that is a savings. The line below that is line 42 is just COVID savings for gasoline and diesel fuel for our transportation vehicles. Line 45 was $48,000. That represents our spring sports savings for coaching salaries. On line 48, that's the salary savings that we had for the 2 custodians at the middle high school that retired mid-year. And line 50, I just want to note these quickly, is those 2 represent the savings that we've had on natural gas line. The positive on this is something I think we're going to be able to drop next year, especially with the town having the reserve count set up. We can be more aggressive on what we budget for that. So that, again, it's a good piece to have of utilities are actually starting to come down, and it may be time to actually lock in a longer term. I'm sure you guys gotten things in the mail to look at for utility companies saying lock in now, which we may do as a town looking at as well. But again, that will help our FY21 budget when we sit down and start crunching numbers to look for reductions of where we can go. And I think, Scott, if you keep scrolling down a little bit more. Line 62 is just mid-year drops that we had for healthcare. We did have our open enrollment plan come up in April with signups, and we actually did have some increases. So actually, if we look at FY21's budget, that number that we have budgeted is projected to come in short. But because the town has set up those reserve accounts, we will be able to utilize that for a 1-year offset for FY21. Again, I know I'm jumping between fiscal years. It's interesting to see how all these things tie in. But overall, this number doesn't show it on here, but we're projecting to send back to the town anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000, which the town is short on local receipts. I have been working with Meg LeMay in regards to what they originally budgeted to what they're actually taking in. March was on target with what they projected, but April we did see a little bit of a downturn, and they're waiting to compile May's. But local receipts, they have seen a little bit of a downward tick on them. So returning something to the town is, I think, in good faith, the right thing to do for the long-term sustainability of not only our operational budgets, but for them to have some free cash, which we've benefited from the last couple of years. That number, though, that $200,000 to $3,000 is based on a few things. That is based on what we end up having to purchase for PPE equipment, which Scott mentioned we have started, and also the last utility bill that I have for electric coming in. But that line, even though it's not listed on this tab, if you look at the 611 tab, it does show that we're going to probably have anywhere from $30,000 to $45,000 savings on those line items when they come in for the final bill. Again, it's nice to save on utilities to then transfer into the classroom.
Exactly.
Jason raised his hand.
I move to accept the FY20 budget transfers.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any more discussion, questions?
Nope.
Brad?
Nope.
All right.
Not see any.
Okay. All right. So roll call vote. Jason?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
I'm aye as well. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, reports from the school committee. Oh, actually, no, do you want to do, you just had up public events, didn't you?
No, reports to the school committee. That's where we're next.
Okay. Okay, so but we have no events you want to publicize?
No, Ruby and Mike covered those in their presentations.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to say, comment, any messages for the community before we adjourn?
I'm good.
Okay, Jason's good. Stephanie?
You know, I always have something to say.
There you go.
First of all, I wanted to thank everyone that attended tonight. I think at one point we were up to over 40 participants, which was great to see. So many people tuning in to find out what's going on. Like Tammy had mentioned earlier, I also went to the vigil that was held last week in Carver. And it was really moving and really powerful. And it was really wonderful to see current students, alumni, officials, and just so many members from our community come together and share solidarity and some peace, and to have a remembrance. I don't want to make it anything I'm going to say political, but I just want to say that it was a great thing to see, and I hope that moving forward, that we're facing uncertain times with where the money's going to fall, where the budget's going to fall, and I feel that we are moving towards even more collaboration and even more of everyone really working together as a community to, hopefully bring everyone together to where we need to be. So I just wanted to also say thank you to everyone for how much time and effort they put into everything in the school district. It's greatly appreciated. I know that we have a lot of people that are going above and beyond and working more now and more hours now than they did when the kids were actually in school. So I'm just very thankful to everyone that is doing that, and I'm thankful and so proud of everything that our district has done to try to give the students some sense of normalcy, still giving them some recognitions and some celebrations that are really going to give them lifelong memories that are positive, that will they'll be able to reflect back on, as opposed to just having so many events and so many milestones that they've missed out on. I think the district has really done a good job of putting together events that will create positive lifelong memories for our students and for our teachers and our faculty as well. So I just really wanted to say thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Jen, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief, but my first meeting, and I'm really excited to be here, and I look forward to working with everybody. I echo Stephanie's sentiments on just how well all of the administration and staff has done in these unprecedented times. As a parent of 2 elementary aged kids, I just think that our teachers have gone above and beyond, and the administration and Ruby and all of her team at the elementary school. Sorry, Mike, I don't have any exposure to the high school yet other than through nieces, but I know on the elementary level, they've done so many fun things to try to keep the kids engaged, and I just really love how our communities come together during this. So I look forward to serving with all of you on the school committee.
Awesome.
I forgot to say welcome. So welcome, Jen.
Yes.
Thanks.
I meant to say welcome, but I forgot. My apologies.
All right. I guess I'll just say congratulations to Jen and to Stephanie for both winning their elections to be on the school committee, the Carver School Committee, and for their dedication to Carver's families and children and our taxpayers. I'd like to also thank everyone that ran for office that didn't win. That I want to thank everybody, thank those people for stepping up and giving the people of Carver a choice.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. I also echo Stephanie's and Tammy's sentiment about I didn't go to the vigil. I was working, and I had an obligation, but I saw people breaking up from it. But I hope that with all the work that our school resource officers around the country and the police departments around the country have done with community outreach, that these unfortunate incidents and the death of Mr. Floyd, which was terrible, doesn't sour people's attitudes and kids' attitudes on our great police department and police officers. A few bad apples can ruin the bunch, but we have so many good people in those jobs that sacrifice their lives for the rest of us. And it's one of the things I was thinking about is that I just hope it doesn't, sully that, because they don't deserve it. So hopefully we can come to a resolution with this finally in this country and realize there's a problem with maybe some excess force that has been used and people have been kind of victimized, but that our police department are good people at the same time. That being said, I want to thank everybody on our staff for everything they do and for getting us through this again, and hopefully towards the tail end of this COVID-19 outbreak, and we have a successful opening in September. All right, so with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. And
I move to adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation and not return to public session.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. Jason?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. We are adjourned. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Rich at Area 58 and everybody that attended tonight. And thank you. We'll see you next month.
I put the Zoom link for in the background agenda for the executive session. And 10:15, 5-minute break.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.